Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, my one and only co-host, is so it seems, Tyler. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
3 weeks in a row.
That's
Catching
right.
back up.
You're making up that time. Also joining us, Nick. What's up from the Dias cast? How you doing, buddy? It's good to have you.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. We are glad to have you on. Tonight we are going to be talking about one of my favorite things in the entire world, and that is Skaven. We're going to be talking about the little rats that have my heart. We're going to be talking about their position and place in the new 2022-2023 Season 2 second half, the returning First Blood, whatever this is called. So, whatever this 6-month season is, and whether or not they've got any gas in the tank. Spoilers, I think they really do. But of course, first up, let's do the news. Tyler.
The news. 40K, 40K, 40K. It continues in 2023. Makes our life easy.
Absolutely. Just keep it up. We can just skip this dumb thing every time. Thank you. It's a 40K thing. I look forward to 10th edition in 4 months or whatever it is. I'm the opposite of whatever excited is, Tyler, with it will be at Adepticon, and like clearly that's where they'll announce it, right?
Oh yeah.
During the big preview.
Yep.
So that means that the big preview at Adepticon will be like so focused on 40K stuff, and it'll be all those people going nuts and everything. Like that'll be the thing. And then we'll be a little appendix on the end.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. What's next?
So that means I can skip Adepticon this year, right? I don't have to be there for the show. I can just skip it.
Incorrect. All right, what's next?
All right, we got a very pretty Sally. Very pretty new salamander. The only problem is that he's not eating a skink. I need a skink in that mouth, but I do love this model.
This is great. Yeah, Nick, what's your take on this guy?
I started with Seraphon. My first army was Seraphon because I love dinosaurs riding dinosaurs.
Sure.
And what an awesome slot in to replace the old terrible salamander. I've got a couple metal salamanders behind me, and I love the way this looks. I don't know if it's going to be side by side with the existing salamander or a complete replacement, but nailed the theme. I love the things they're doing with the fins, leaning into that more with the new models. The only thing I'm not crazy about is the sideways fins on the skinks' heads. They don't match the other skinks, and that's a little bit weird to me. But otherwise,
yeah, because they're like flat like this instead of up like this. Yes. They got like this weird front hawk instead of a mohawk. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing I'll say is that they continue the trend with the Seraphon previews they've been doing to do a coalesced paint job and a starborn paint job. And they had kind of the preview of what this looks like in the different color scheme. I like it.
I really got to give a shout out to the painter on this one. That fin looks amazing. Like, what a cool paint job they did on this. That is very creative and different. Not something I think I would normally expect to see on a GW studio model. I just think that thing looks really cool and fantastic. So, like, whoever you are, GW painter that they won't let take credit for the hard work that you do, and when you post it has to say, I was very happy to be part of the team that made this model. What a bunch of nonsense crap. Like, let people take credit for their amazing work. But anyways, you did great work. No artist, heavy metal painter, we see you. And we like what you're doing. I want you to know that.
Not just your hands.
That's right. So yeah, I like this dude's pretty cool. I have to imagine this is a full replacement for the old salamander, and that guy goes the way of history. But of course, it's probably on the same size base, so it's not like it behooves you. You don't have to throw your old metal ones in the trash. No one's coming for your metal salamanders. You know, you can still go. But now for people who want to get in, they don't have to buy a crap model. Won't that be nice? So yeah, cool. Good stuff. We saw a little bit of the rules, but that doesn't actually matter at all. Like, who cares? Like, seeing one attack profile means literally nothing until you know, how can it be buffed? How can it be? What's its other profiles look like? What is its special abilities does it have? How many points does it cost? Like, you know, I could show you an attack profile that's like 10 attacks on 2s and 2s, negative 10 rend, 100 damage. Right? And you're like, that's amazing. Unfortunately, the model costs 2,050 points. Ooh. So close. So close. So yeah, I mean, it's fine. We'll talk about it, of course, whenever we see more of the Seraphon. But great stuff.
Absolutely.
What's up next?
All right, so we accidentally skipped over the General's Handbook FAQ
We
last
did.
week.
I totally missed this last week. I'm sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
I remembered it earlier in the day and then just forgot about it. Like, honestly, when I was putting together the news that afternoon, I just too much stuff going on. But we'll talk about it this week. Here we are. Nick, what's your take on this as a whole? Anything in here that caught your particular attention?
Well, it got mentioned earlier, but the ward rule for Fueled by Gurish Rage and the ugly experience of rolling that out on the table and then having that completely negated by certain rules. Sigvald loves this change for no particular reason.
Sure.
The Arcanaut Admiral loves this change. That one sticks out. And then the change for Battlefield Quarters, so I can no longer, with my Warsong Revenant, nuke an entire army in their deployment with the Realm spell.
So sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just want to have fun. You know?
Right.
It's not enough to have
players.
his built-in War Scroll spell and Dwellers Below. He really needed this too. So I'm with you. Solidarity.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the specifics. What happened? Okay. Can you use Tunnel Master instead of making a normal move that takes place during a different phase? For instance, when using the Mighty Destroyer's battle trait to make a normal move in the hero phase? Answer, yes. Looks like everything's coming up Iron Jaws, baby. Mega Boss with Destroyer, we knew you were good, but now you're great. It's fantastic. So obviously that dude is just going to get Mighty Destroyered from downtown. Because he can do it to himself. He doesn't have, like, even if you manage to trip up the giant base of the Mega Boss, he can just make some pigs move and then have himself warp across the board in the hero phase and then just walk 4 more inches toward their lines and charge on a 5. So that's nice. And true, they could redeploy away from him, but of course a clever player will pop up within range of 2 different units and walk within range of 2 different units so that
There you go.
redeploy all you want, you ain't getting away from me.
Shout out to Levitate. If you can fit that in there, have him fly, hop over the lines, get into the goods.
More fun. More fun. Does the Shrine of Conquest rule and only the worthy battle plan apply to contesting terrain features? No, that's fine. That's just like a minor clarification. And then if an effect would increase the wounds characteristic of a GC, do they lose GC? The answer is no. That should be no, but see below where we screw over one particular army who wants to have fun and make Vince make a mistake live on air this week because he forgot the FAQ and it caused him to put together a scenario wrong. But I blame Gavin ultimately. Does Fueled by Girlish Rage count as a ward save? As already mentioned, yes. What a bad thing that is.
Yep.
Like, that certainly diminishes the value of that thing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a lot that turns off wards in this game nowadays.
Yeah, shouldn't the text on that have just been, does this count as a ward? No, use the updated text for Fueled by Gurish Rage below, right? Which is, in lieu of making a ward save, right, or something like that, you may use this even if the wound would not normally allow a ward save. You know what I mean? Like you could have a longer text to it that says this is a special thing but also doesn't stack.
Right,
because that's what they're trying to avoid. And like, I get it, I get you don't want it to stack, but you could have put the rules text around it. But anyways, now it's a ward save, so Sigvald will kill you and you won't do anything. Apparently you didn't have enough rage. And then if a Slaves to Darkness player chooses the Demon Hood effect for the Dark Apotheosis result on the Eye of the Gods table and the hero is a Galatian champion, does the Demon Prince added to their army gain the Galatian champion keyword? Could that Demon Prince use? And the answer is no. He would not gain the Galatian champion keyword. He would gain the aspect of the champion enhancement that the hero had. It would not be able to use it as it lacks the Galatian champion keyword. Really unfun, but this is one of those weird rules things where what you're doing is actually sacrificing this model. Like, you're getting this model is removed from play, and then you're adding a new model in. And when that new model comes in, he's not meeting the qualifications, right? But the problem is that's not how anybody thinks of it. That's not like, that's the mechanical what's happening. But what's happening to me is my dude is going and hulking out, and it's amazing. That's what's happening, right? So whatever.
And it's another reason why you don't choose to turn your hero into a demon prince, as if there
Sure.
weren't enough reasons.
Yeah.
They really
What
don't want to sell that
like
new Demon Prince model. They're very against it. They made that beautiful new model, and they're like, look, guys, we don't want to sell any of these. Let's keep these in stock. We'll throw them into a Regiment of Renown box in the future. We're good.
You're worried about the supply for the 40K side, so they want to make sure none of them sell.
Ah, there you go.
We got to slow play it.
Right.
Okay, cool. And then, yeah, down here, Grinding Teeth of Galay, little minor change that says you don't have to see the objective, which makes sense, because then they don't have to play, weird threading the needle of, like, can I see the objective if a model's standing on top of a 1 millimeter invisible point or whatever,
Right.
so on. Infantry, they added the companion exception, because there are infantry with companions as well. There are infantry with, like, who have 4 wounds or less, who have, like, a bird or something like that.
Interestingly, this seems to be there to address the long strikes.
Sure.
Prime has it. But the long strikes rule doesn't call it a companion. They don't benefit from this change at all. They just say treat it like a mount.
Oh.
But then, the previous thing said those companions aren't to be treated as a mount for these purposes. So you got to reference back through the other one.
Sure.
Yeah. So you got to run through 2 FAQs to get to the answer, but we get where they're intending. Yeah, it's not just long strikes. There's a couple. I think of the who is it? Like the Blood Sisters or whatever. The ones that have the little bat dinosaur dragon bird thing, whatever. Like there's a couple floating around. Obviously, the Kurnoth shooters have their little spike friends, but they're 5 wounds. They don't count as infantry anyway. So, but cool. And then also, yes, as pointed out by Hades, there's a bunch of like war bands, Warcry and Underworld's war bands that have companions as well, snakes and birds and dogs and nonsense. So, yep. And then battle lines drawn. That's the one where the table quarters are the objective. The table quarters are the objective for basically contesting it, and then grand strategies and battle tactics. And that's it. No more fun. Stop all that fun you're having. Quit it. Quit targeting the whole space with spells and doing other interesting things. It's just there for an objective to be conquered. Otherwise, you're just picking the center point of the table quadrant, and you target it and measure anything from that for abilities and spells and things. Okay. That's fine.
I mean, apparently nobody's playing that battle plan anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that one's not going to get used in tournaments, so cool change.
Yeah.
Good to know.
The community is definitely already set the 7 or 8, depending on your feelings about Realmstone Cache, based on what I've been seeing so far. So, yeah, I mean, but that's not a bad number.
Yep.
7 out of 12. I'll take that. 8 out of 12.
More than we've had in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Realmstone is fine, but I know a lot of people don't love it.
Yeah.
Because there is certainly an element of randomness to it. I understand. But at the same time, I think it's perfectly fine. It's not like it isn't relocation or folks. Like let's be real here. Okay, cool. Anything else for the news? I think we're good.
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Let's talk about some pick the week. Nick, what do you want to share with everybody?
Cubic Shenanigans did a book review for the Beasts of Chaos tome, and I got to play Brendan from Cubic Shenanigans on his Beasts of Chaos, and he's a longtime Beast player, and his excitement about the way that book plays now and the high intelligence plays that are possible in that book now is infectious, and I'm really excited for him. I think they did a really nice job reviewing it, he and Dan, and had a good time listening to them.
Very nice. Always a fantastic listen. Totally support that. Link is down below. Tyler, you got like 52 picks. What do you want to share with everybody?
Well, the die is cast. Nick, I've been loving the battle reports. The last one with kits was fantastic. So everybody make sure to go check them out if you haven't yet. Like, subscribe, all the fun things. We've got Budtastic Guy on Twitter has been going around doing the Warhammer Wellness Tour over the last couple of weeks. I think he's Coming in up to 2,000 miles, or over 800 miles. So friend of the show, Bud, with Party at the All Points. It's been awesome following along. So if you're not following Bud on Twitter, check him out. Budtastic guy. He just did a bat rep with Season of War, rocking his gits. Jordan was on OC Arc. It's really good. Really interesting to see. So recommend that. And then speaking of Dan and Brendan with Cubic Shenanigans, so Dan is organizing AOS Youngbloods this year. Our friend 2 Plus Tough Doug has been helping out as well. So just wanted to give a little bit of detail about that. If anybody has any young folks who you would like to try to get into the game, 15 years and under, they're going to be doing an event 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. last day of Adepticon, so Sunday, March 26th. And we've got a link to all the details. You can check it out. But yeah, it's really well put together. I'm excited for it. I hope that they can max out. I think they're looking for about 16 folks for that one.
Fantastic. Yes, if you're gonna have any young bloods there, I would recommend 1, you get involved in this. 2, you get them painting, get them having an entry in the Young Bloods competition at Golden Demon. Let me just shout that out real quick. If you've got kids and you're gonna have them with you, get them entering in there. It's great to do it early. There's generally not that many entries. It can be a really fun time for them to see their model in the case. Everybody always cheers so much for the Youngbloods because, like, every painter there wants to see the next generation of painters get lifted up for these kids to be celebrated. So, like, if you've got a kid and he paints with you or she paints with you, get that kid to put something they've done in the case. It's fun. Like, let them get in there. It's the best time, and they get to compete a little early, and maybe they win something, maybe they don't. But I guarantee you that everybody will cheer and love it and celebrate them, and that's always fun for the kids. Okay, links are all down in the description. Mine, Andrew Gonzalez, that was Cubic Shenanigans. Link is down below. That's who did the book review that was recommended. And my link is for our good buddies, Scott and John, Miniac and Ninjon, and Trapped Under Plastic, talking about their LVO experience. It's very interesting. LVO is a convention, probably it's the one big one I don't go to every year and probably never will. I have the opposite of a desire to go to Vegas ever, but especially not in January. But it sounds like they had a really awesome time teaching their class, and this was kind of a recap of their whole weekend. Looks like they had a lot of fun. If you were out at LVO, I hope you all had fun too. So yeah, check it out. Okay, all of that linked down in the description. Check out those links. Gentlemen, let's go to some hobby time. Nick, what are you working on?
I'm working on getting my Adepticon army ready, and it's going to be Slaves to Darkness. I've finally settled. I was going back and forth. So I've got a spider-themed, Bellacore-led force that I'm working on. Been doing some pretty heavy conversions on some things. I've got some Drider Knights and my Drider Bellacore that are coming together, and painting on that. Feeling like I'm behind the gun already a little bit on it. I've got less than a month left. So
okay.
Tempest Fugit. Today is basically a month away exactly. If it makes you feel any better, you got basically on the like, because it's Wednesday, so it's more or less to the day. Hey, look at that!
Ooh, pretty.
There you go. That looks cool as awesome. Man.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that one. I just need the rest of the army to match it now.
Always the challenge. But hey, the centerpiece looks good, and it's gonna get that. Like, some people are gonna stop and ask about that thing. That's for sure. That is gorgeous. You did a great job. Tyler, what's been on your hobby table, buddy? What are you working on?
Yeah, I was just telling you guys that I think tonight was my second tweet ever where I sent out a tweet with models that I painted. Got 3 Nurglings done. Got a beautiful, cute little Beast of Nurgle done. I actually love that model. It took to that slap chop so well. Oh, yeah, sure. Fantastic. Yeah. So, yeah, the painting night, it's doing its thing. It's working. I've got another half dozen units in progress. Things are happening.
I love it. Tyler, I'm excited for your journey. We're going to get about a year of slap chop. Then we're going to get you ready. You're going to start pushing your skills. 2025, we're going to be scheming up your Golden Demon entries. I can't wait. It's going to be super fun.
Yeah. Well, that'll be a good excuse to finally get to your house, get some games in, and some
painting in. And some painting in. You have a meticulous nature that would do well in that sort of thing. Let me just say, that
Okay.
competition.
Well,
I do
accused of
not.
being-
This is the problem.
Weren't you? I saw you were on your channel earlier today. Was that
Doing some
Golden
prep, yeah.
Demon? Okay.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
Golden Demon prep. Yes, exactly.
Very nice.
All right. For myself, guess what? Yes, the Golden Demon prep continues. Guy number 2 in the unit is done. He's complete. Finito. So now we're on to
Nice.
guy number 3, and we're making real good progress. He's that doesn't look like much. I know it really doesn't. But I promise you, this is so many hours of work. But there's a lot of skin on that guy. He's done. His little face is still red. He hasn't gotten that yet. But on the whole, we're moving right along, footloose and fancy free. Feeling good about finishing this guy soon. He's missing an arm because his other arm's a banner. It's over to the side. But I think we'll get this unit done. Then we got to make some bases for everybody. I got a lot of bases to do. But this guy will get done in probably next week. I'm hoping that by the time we do next Wednesday's show, I'll either be done or close enough, like pretty close. I can handle pretty close. I am going away with my wife for a couple days starting tomorrow, so I won't have as much paint time as I want, as always. So I'll settle for getting close by next Wednesday.
I don't know if
that's
that's
fine.
something you can say, but how many entries, if you can say, are you doing this year?
I don't care. I'll say. I can talk about all of them.
Okay.
I'm not like
I
a
don't
keep
know.
things secret guy. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know.
Should be 5. I think that's
Okay,
right.
wow.
Yeah, should be 5.
Yeah.
One of them isn't really serious. I just had the model, and I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'm not going to tell you
Yeah.
which one that is, but like,
Sure.
but like, it's fine enough. It won't win anything. I don't care. I'm just putting it in because it's fine. And then they have orders of seriousness. Okay, like what do I think the chances are this does anything? They have a clear and defined rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, such is life. You can't do
man.
everything to 100%. You know, you got to do it to your
Seems-
best ability.
Yeah. Seems like a good number.
It's a number. I'll say that. All right. Cool. Gentlemen, are we ready
Ready.
to talk about some Skaven?
100%.
All right.
I'm probably going to be in the role of asking you fellas questions. This is an army that I don't know particularly well. I'm fascinated by it. It's got a lot going on in that battle tome. I've never seen so many freaking artifacts. With the way that they did it, it's kind of jumbled it all
God.
together. Like it's just
It's so ridiculous the way that the layout on that is like a masterwork in how not to do layout in books. Like I obviously Uncle Adam does all the layout for our books. Okay. And obviously there's lots of work going on with that right now behind the scenes, as Tyler is more than aware, for our next book. But Adam is someone who's worked on design and layout work and stuff like that for 20 years, 25 years, like a long time. He's well versed in it. I showed him that page and he about had a stroke. So, I'm just saying. But anyways, Skaven, other than some funky layout choices, I really think are one of the most fun armies, especially in the current season. I really think they're primed for success in this season. I think the army, even though we got like a 2.75 book, effectively we got a Soulblight Gravelords book. Like we didn't get an actual 3.0 book. But that's all right. It's still a fun book. It's still got lots of options, lots of list building potential. And we're going to talk about how it aligns up in the current season tonight. We're going to look at some sample lists, talk about strengths, weaknesses, all that. But before we get into the specifics, Nick, what do you like about Skaven? What do you think about him at a high level in the current season? What's your take?
So, I mean, in the current season, I think they've got some real compelling options. I think they've got Galatian champions that you were running anyway, so they slot very nicely into what you want to be doing. Galatian champions that really benefit from being more difficult to shoot. Galatian champions that are inherently very mobile because of some allegiance abilities and can get around the table and complete battle tactics. They're a book that has very poor battle tactics in the book, so they need to lean on the General's Handbook battle tactics, but they can because of the Galatian champion theme. I think they're a book with real potential, and I think more than that, in any season, I think this is a book that is a list builder's dream. They are a box of Lego pieces that you can slot together in different mixes and balances. The the way they've done sub-allegiances in this book really encourages you to not lean too heavily in one direction. Oftentimes we see sub-allegiances that basically say, take this one unit and run as many as you can. It's very good. And the Skaven book is the opposite of that. It says, get a little benefit from this side, maybe pull in a different sub-allegiance and get some benefits on that side. Find that balance that's right for you in your list. I love that aspect of the book, and I wish more books were like that. Power level aside, I think the list building element of this book is almost perfect. The way command traits and artifacts work in this book, they have the power level that you want out of them. The enhancements are all very good. Well, not all very good, but many of them are very good. And I really am a fan of this book. Oftentimes when I get a book, I'll do a tour through the sub-factions or a tour through the obvious list choices. And this one, it's not 5 lists, right? It's A and B, and then A and C, and then A and B, and all these different combinations, and I love that.
So do you think that the list writing has gotten even better with this season compared to last season, or is it similar? Or
there's a couple of new tricks that are at a power level where you kind of want to pull them in and make them a big piece of your list. And there's enough power in some of those things that I think they start to be compelling on a power level point of view relative to the obvious power level that is, I'm going to run a bunch of Storm Fiends. They're going to shoot off my opponent. Because that was really, I think, in many ways, the strongest way to run this book all through 2nd edition. In many ways, the strongest way to run this book up until this GHB. And now I think with some points changes and some different compelling options, there's reasons to lean away from that.
Okay.
Totally agreed. Just a quick shout out before as we transition into the details here. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, hit those buttons, do those things. If you like Skaven and crazy rat people running all over and killing everything, hey, hit like. It's great. It's easy, and it's just clicking a button. All right, totally agree with you on the current season, because I mean I think the trick with the past season is Bounty Hunters was a nightmare for us. We had to really carefully play this like battle line shenanigan of what was battle line and what wasn't, and things that were like Storm Vermin that are automatically battle line that have a lot of power naturally were just very diminished because they're just going to get lifted, or the threat that they get lifted existed, right? So, and all that's gone now, and in fact, all of our heroes slide into this really well. So yeah, let's do a little overview here. I think you're right. The new season, its focus on Galatian champions means foot heroes in general are well protected and have high value. And you mentioned it for things like the battle plans. A lot of the battle plans that are going to get used in events are going to care about Galatian champion presence for like bonus points or stuff like that. I totally agree with you on the book battle tactics. They're pretty much not good in this book, which is fine. I don't use those anyways or believe in them.
Those grand strategies, though, those are perfect, right?
No, I don't use those either.
I was amazed at the phoning in of the grand strategy. They're literally all the same, but just like keyworded to different sub factions.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
And very unlikely to score if
and not desirable in the first place. Yeah.
Phoning in is something that happened with a fair amount of this book, but that's fine. It's okay still. We hit enough value here. Like they hit the right things that it's still a very fun book. It lashes. What's funny about it is it lacks any of the like flash or design creativity that a lot of the books get. Like, oh, here's the cool new monstrous actions or heroic actions or stuff like that you're gonna really want to use. Like, here's this cool unique element you get to really play in and explore the space of, right? And we got none of that, but in a way, Skaven's a great explanation, or a great sort of exploration of just like how to do the fundamentals well. And your point, Nick, about like you don't get pulled too hard in one direction. Mixed arms force generally pays off quite strongly, and you're highly incentivized for different power pairs that are different utility toolboxes. That this answers this and this answers this. Like that's the fundamentals of a good battle tome, and that it actually does really well. So hey, I'll leave the flash behind if it means I've got a solid foundation, right? And so Skaven, how they slot into this is they have an abundance of high value, high utility Galatian champions. Like that's exactly what you said, Nick, right? Like these are real force multipliers in big ways, and having them be able to be protected easily is great. It's just great. Like some of these guys are extremely hard to remove, depending on your particular unit choices. Even if they do have ways to get around the Galatian champion protections, it's still hard to remove them. So, and we'll talk about that little stack of defenses here in a moment, because there's quite a few.
A lot of books coming into this General's Handbook had to look at which Galatian champions are worth me slotting in to grab a battle tactic, right? They were trying to find some to bring, and Skaven had them all along, right? Oftentimes, in multiples, maybe 4.
Yeah, a lot of them, and they're cheap, which is nice, right? And they do something, they're useful, they're cheap, and oftentimes I had 5 or 6 heroes already in my armies because I wasn't over investing in heroes to get those. That's still like a 500 to 600 point investment. Like I still had plenty of space for other units because I wasn't taking the big giant monsters in most of my lists, right? I was all GCs all the time anyways, mostly, since the Screaming Bell became crap. So they also, and this is super important, Skaven also have a high number of mobility options. And mobility is just, I cannot stress, after, getting some games in this new season, boy, can I not stress how important it is for your GCs to be able to be mobile. Between the battle tactics, between wanting to be on a particular point for a bonus point, needing to be here, needing to be there, like, boy, is mobility important. And Skaven can do that. They can get those little duders around where they need to be, and that's just incredibly important. So need to get 2 heroes to a random place, you can probably do that, right? Like that's great. Now, nothing in Skaven has the raw power of the mega boss with Destroyer teleport that we just talked about earlier. Like there's no threat like that in Skaven. Okay. Like where if this dude comes into you and kicks off, he'll just start lifting entire units almost regardless of what's happening, right?
I think the Warbringer with the Warpstone Charm is close to that level.
He's good, but he's not a GC, right? I mean specifically with the GC at the GC level, right? The nothing that you can like tunnel master around and pop up and move afterward and then come in with a -2 rend, 6 damage attack or something, like, because that's what the mega boss on foot does, right? Like real talk, he teleports, as I mentioned earlier, he teleports over to you, walks 4 inches forward, so he's 5 inches away, charges a 5-inch charge into you, and then makes 8 attacks, 9 attacks, 10 attacks, depending on what he's already done in the game, probably on like 2s and something, at rend 2 damage 6.
He's unique in that respect among GCs.
Right. Yeah, like that guy is a straight up nightmare, right? There's just nothing like that here, to be clear, right? But again, at the GC level, I don't disagree on Warbringers, but I like Warbringers are themselves their own investment. They're not bad. I love them. They're great. But I have some issues with the Vermin Lords. We'll discuss them.
Sure.
But they do get large payoffs from these myriad heroes, right? And that's good. The other fun thing is now with this, everybody, because of the way the Skaven hero to battle line system works, that is to say, like this hero enables 1 unit of its own battle line, right? So this plague priest brings in monks or censer bearers as the battle line, and this death master brings in gutter runners or night runner, or night runners as battle line. I was going to call them night rangers, but that's a completely different situation. Sister Christian, indeed. So, but because of that, they all bring their own bodyguard units, right? Like everybody's got their 1 unit that's just like everybody's. It's not they need to be near that battle line. It's just you have lots of options to pad out your battle line now. Now there's no downside to that really, in ways that you've just got pockets everywhere where these guys can be around and be untargetable, right?
So you were actively dodging that last General's Handbook, and now you're
right.
swallowing it.
Yeah, it went from like a horrible disadvantage you were trying to make not work to, oh good, this actually feels like a reward. Like I have a neat list building option. How fun. Okay. Anything else I missed there, Nick or Tyler? Any questions you have or anything you want to bring up, Tyler?
What's your guys' respective sense, maybe start with you, Nick, of the competitive power level, whatever you want to call it, for Skaven right now?
I think that if you're running kind of a Stormfiend based list, you've got some really good matchups, and if you can dodge your bad matchups, you're going to do fairly well. So I think they're kind of a polarized high B.
Okay.
Vince, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they're like a solid 50% win rate army that with the right pilot and the right list. And yes, certainly there are some matchups that are very bad for them, but like but not many. It's not like a huge number. You're not dodging the most popular things in the meta or something like that, right? But I think with the right pilot, they can punch way above their weight. Just because if some ability to win games in Age of Sigmar, and I believe this is true, is the ability to play to your outs, right? Is the ability to have optionality that lets you seize on key moments in the game, right? To achieve victory. And I think that's how a lot of games, especially at the high competitive level, end up, right? It turns on a small number of moments on whether or not you can capitalize on those things or not. The days of just like taking a raw hammer and shoving it down your opponent's throat to go 5-0 are mostly gone. You know? We're not in like FEC 2019, Slanesh 2019, something like that. That doesn't pull the weight anymore.
Well, I mean, we are in a season of Death Stars, arguably. I mean, that's a broader discussion which we've been having, but
that's not everything. That's not just your armies of hammers. Like that's not your whole army's hammers. You push it forward, you win.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
When you were doing like 2-3 keepers of secrets that were flying around the board, and you were just pushing them forward and going like, I don't care, charge me or I'll charge you. It doesn't matter. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Right? When that was the bar, that's a very different play experience. There's very few outs you could play to there, right? But here, I think where the games are closer and do that, I think Skaven have an incredible ability to play to their outs. There's an incredible amount of just sort of cleverness you can bring to bear of like, oh, I'll do this, I'll move here, I'll skitter leap to here, I'll use the gnaw hole in this way. This guy will gnaw hole to here, and then this guy will jump in that gnaw hole to go over here, and because you can use each gnaw hole once now, and so there's just like a lot of a Skaven army played properly is going to feel somewhat like your opponent is playing 3-card Monty, right? Where they're just like, follow the lady. Where's the lady? Where's the Grey Seer? Oh, he's over here. Now he's over here. And that's nice. Kind of the feeling. And so I think to that regard, they are very strong. Where they're weak, and one of the things that they'll run into that's a problem is they really don't have anvils. Right. And so, like, if you run into an opponent that demands you have anvils to withstand them, right? And there are certainly, like, some Ironjawz lists that play like this. Like, what stops an Ironjawz list properly tooled? Like, I'm thinking of a Scooter, Bloodtooths, all the pigs are in your face with him, turn 1 on a 1-drop. Just like, here comes literally the entire army, off, and they're like, yes, you can have chaff, but they're just going to blow it up and then recharge you again because of Bloodtooths and stuff like that, right? Something like that can sometimes be a pretty tough play.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
Because it's such a hammer that's smashing into you, you don't have time to like activate your tricks, as it were, right? So unless you showed up with like a weird null deploy list, which is a thing you can do, but unless you showed up with something like that, which isn't the norm, you're probably in some trouble, right?
Against most sorts of DPS, Skaven can offer some. They've got cheap screens, and they've got exceptional ability to tar pit a lot of things. Ironjawz probably gets above the threshold where those tar pits are really effective, but 60 clan rats is a difficult thing for almost anything to move in a turn. 60 wounds is a lot of damage to do for a lot of things.
Yep. Absolutely agreed. When people rely on sort of average hammers, you know, like I think of like Stormcast hammers. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, man. Knock yourself out. Like, I'm not worried about you, right? Like that's you don't have the strength. You don't have the power, right? It has to be where like your army is an overpowered hammer, like as a force, right? We'll see how. You know, we know we've got a corn book on the horizon, right? So you know, we'll see how that looks whenever it happens. Because you know that could end up if it gets the treatment we all suspect it's going to get to being transformed from like this weird Johnny Army of the ballet of death into just like Smash Force 2023. That could end up being a thing too, but who knows? Okay, I wanted to take a moment to look at our cast of characters, shall we? Because there are a total of 8 Galatian champions you can select in this army. All of whom are good.
Oh, wow.
Like every single one of these guys is good. And the only shame is that I can't take all 8 of them usually in lists. Like every one of these guys has value. Every one. That's what's crazy about this. It's Nick, to your point earlier of like people were trying to find a Galatian champion to justify putting in their list. All 8 of these guys have a purpose and do something unique and good. Right?
I have run
everyone.
all 8 of these in lists since this book came out. Everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There is literally not a GC on this picture that I haven't had in a list. Totally agreed. Because they all serve some purpose. It's wild. Like I can't think of any other army where their GCs are like that. Where you go 100% any of these guys can go on your list and they're going to give you dividends.
I will say that the last one in your picture, the engineer, is only there because of one word on one other war scroll. But yes, everyone belongs here.
That is true.
Warp
but
lightning
that's
cannons?
the warp lightning cannon. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. For the Skaven dummies like myself. Okay.
Yes, sorry, but we're going to go through these dudes because I want to talk about each of them
Right,
in a little detail.
All right,
But
sweet.
But like, yeah, but still that's a power pair that's like good, right? It's got a purpose.
Absolutely worth running. Yeah.
It's functional. Okay. Let's talk these boys through. We start in many ways with the best, the king. Let me tell you what right now. Cue the Def 6 because he is the king around here. And this guy is amazing. The Arch Warlock, the old Ikit Claw. God, I can't wait until we get a new model of this guy. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what this thing will look like when it gets the glow up into a 3.0 model? My God.
It still looks great.
If you don't see me for a day or two after they release that model, don't be surprised.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure I'm recovering. But like the Arch Warlock is fantastic. 3-up base save. That's the most important part to begin with. He is like one of the toughest things in the army. Just because of that. He's, yes, double caster. He is obviously Scryer, so he opens up all the Scryer doors, if you should want that. Which mainly means Storm Fiends, because Acolytes are crap. But that's all right. He also is actually decent in melee in the right circumstances. You can turn him. I'm going to talk later. I'll show the build later, but you can turn this guy into a just smash bat monster, and he'll go in and do work. I had this guy the game I played this weekend, and I just was like walking around, and people were like, "Oh, blah blah blah, it's just some dumb rat," and I'm like, "Nope, there goes." Like I just lifted 5 Dawnbringers off the table, just like these guys are all dead. Just get your dumb ponies out of here. You're all dead. So he rules. Clawlord, incredible command ability, simple +1 attack, can easily get protected by Storm Vermin on an incredible ward save. He is Verminous, so he can carry around the Warpstone Charm, which is like one of the greater magic items you're ever going to put on a hero. And
that's
a
the
better
-1 to save.
-1 to saves. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And better base attack profile than the mightiest Lord Celestant. Yep.
Yeah, what the hell? 6 attacks, 3 series, -1, 2 damage.
And
Very
he gets
rich.
extra attacks for every wound he suffers. That's 6 attacks base, my dog.
And it's easy to hurt him in a
I meant Dawn Riders. Yes, sorry. What did I say? Dawnbringers. Dawn Riders. Sorry. Having that dude lift 5 cav in one go is a pretty good run. I'm just saying. It's not bad.
What were you saying, Nick? He gets extra attacks?
Yeah,
Let's see.
based on that extra attacks based on
Okay.
the damage he's taken, and it's easy in a Skaven list to chip away some damage at him yourself in some cases.
Oh, okay.
And it's also possible in a Skaven list to have him fight on death when he is at bottom bracket, which is an extra 6 attacks, I think. He's 6 wounds base, so 12
5.
attacks, 5
wounds.
5
so
wounds,
yeah.
11 attacks in that scenario.
Yeah, 5.
Potentially for the second fight of the phase.
He goes out swinging.
Right.
Absolutely.
That requires a Vermin Lord casting Dreaded Death Frenzy on him, but still.
Oh, he's the Vermin Lord Warbringer's best friend as well. We should mention that. Like, we're focusing on the GCs here, but the Warbringer stands apart as, like, in my mind, one of the 2 really interesting and solid Vermin Lords. And, like, if you're taking a Warbringer, I don't know why you wouldn't bring a Claw Lord along with him as a little buddy, as a little friend. It's an easy pocket Verminous unit to get him closer to easily tripping off his reroll wounds ability, and who also just carries around a nice command on his own and does things. And as mentioned, yes, can fight on death with 11 3s and 3s, neg 1, 2 damage attacks. Not bad. It'll do work. Not bad for a 100-point hero.
I like him with Tome and Laoshan, so he's hurting himself as he rides Laoshan, and then has Flaming Weapon, so he's 11 attacks or whatever, it can be at damage 3.
Love it. Love it. Yes, this is also a solid build. The Deathmaster, what do we need to say except what a glow up? Nick, we'll talk about the full combo later, but what's not to love about this, dude? Do you want to talk about the Deathmaster a little, so I'm not just doing all the talking?
He's awesome. I mean, just flat out, he slaps. He does mortal wounds on 6s, D3 mortal wounds on 6s, has a shooting profile and a melee profile, and can run and shoot and things like that most of the Eshin heroes can do. Eshin can target a hero at the start of the game and get +1 to hit, +1 wound against him, so he gets some benefits there. But the big draw with him is that you can hide him in a unit at the start of the game, and then he can pop out either at the start of the combat phase, either at the start of the combat phase, or when the unit he's in dies. So when your opponent piles into a unit, blows up that unit, he can then pop out. He takes 1 mortal wound when he does, and he's still there, ready to go the next turn, ready to fight potentially, or ready to retreat, because Skaven can do that. And he has some really great play, specifically with 1 battalion in this General's Handbook. I'm sure you're going to highlight that.
Oh, we're going to highlight that. Don't worry.
Yeah. But the Shadow Magnet trinket on him gives him fight first for 1 round a game. And he's strong. He's got play.
Yeah, and he came down in points recently, now down to 140 off the top of my head. I think that sounds right.
He makes Gutter Runners battle line,
or
any Eshin hero does, and Gutter Runners are very efficiently pointed and very strong.
Yep. So, like, again, this dude's just packing all the things you want. Is he relatively cost effective? Yes. Does he do a bunch of mortal wounds at range and in melee? Yes. Does he enable good, interesting strategies and plays? Yes. Right? Like, it's all this. And we should state here, remember, all these guys are skitter leapable or dreaded skitter leapable, which we'll talk about in a little while, what that means. But that means they can be teleported around. They can all jump in and out of gnaw holes. Okay, so that's another option to move them all around. And importantly, and not to be underestimated, you have Scurry Away, your base battle trait. So when you activate, you can just move away. You can retreat out effectively. And that is an easy way to complete either battle tactics or to get bonus points in this game, where you're like, oh, I need to get a second Galatian champion over to this point. Boop, boop. Right? Like, charge, retreat, walk over there into the range. Job's a good one.
I love Stubborn as a Rhinox on this guy.
Oh, yeah.
So he can pop out of a unit, count as 10 on your opponent's turn when they've just killed your unit.
That's cool. And that's scurry away. Is that basically a normal move, like 7-inch move? You
normal
move 7.
move. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
Yep. And yeah, the Death Rider or the Death Rider. Good lord, the Death Master moves 7. So yes, he just walks 7 away. Skaven heroes are for the most part 6 or 7 inches, depending on what we're talking about here. These little foot guys, that is to say. The Grey Seer. I mean, he's the Grey Seer. He is what he is. He's a great double caster who is also a powerhouse in how he can force spells through by eating up some warpstone. He can be pretty easily well protected because he brings his own bodyguard rule with him since he's Master Clan. He has Skitterleap on his spell list, which is pretty great. And so, yep, he has Death Frenzy as well. So, I mean, he's a double caster with the option to go into superpower mode, into like Super Saiyan once a round, who can also draw other bonuses from like gnaw holes and stuff like that, same as everything else we've talked about. And he's 120 points.
Yep.
Like
2 caster that's almost always on +1 to cast because he's by a gnaw hole for 100. Awesome.
Yep. The dude is an absolute rock star. There's a reason they're in charge of the Skaven. Like, he's just great top to bottom. He's value. And, you know, normally, obviously, his drawback is pretty obvious. He's like a 5-wound guy on a 6-up save or something. You know, he's wearing robes. But when you can't target him and he can automatically 3-up ward bodyguard to other units, okay, it's actually pretty hard to lift him now all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
Because he'll shrug off enough of any kind of splash damage to stick around.
I was looking at the details of Warpstone tokens. That's amazing. Once per turn in your hero phase, you can do a 3d6 and then pick the highest 2 for your cast. But if you roll a 13, let's see, it's successfully cast and cannot be unbound. Then you take D3 mortal wounds. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it used to auto slay you when you rolled a 13.
Okay.
But the spell still cast unbindable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, instead, the spell still casts unbindable, and you just go, you get an ouchie. It's great. Like, rolling a 13 is awesome. As it should be, by the way. When you roll your own sacred number, that should be like a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
He just gets way worse if he is near a bell.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Don't let this guy scamper up onto a bell. Keep him away from all bells.
Why?
Because it's a Grey Seer on Screaming Bell is the Screaming Bell unit.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay. I'm gonna ask the stupid questions tonight.
No, it's okay. And that's a garbage unit. Even with like one of the most momentous points drops they've ever applied to a unit, it's still terrible and you'd never take it. Like, it's just bad. It's just a badly written war scroll, and whoever wrote it does not understand Skaven. Like, that's what it comes down to. That was written by someone who has never piloted Skaven a day in their life. They've never put a rat on the table. They've never rang the bell. They do not understand what it is in any way, shape, or form. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but like, only someone who's never played this army could have written that scroll. The
265 or so points at this point, and it has the chance to summon 400 points worth, and it's still unplayable.
Right. That really tells you everything you need.
280 right now, looks like. Yeah, interesting. Okay, I was just curious. Yeah, I never see them on the table, so.
Yeah, because they're bad. You'll have to wait for the next book. Like, sometimes scrolls are just fundamentally bad, and this is one of those times. The Master Molder, maybe one of my favorite little dorks in the whole army. 90 points for this guy. 90 points. Okay, first of all, you have my attention already at 90 points. Yeah, he's 5 wounds on a 5-up save. But he enables Rat Ogres and Giant Rats as battle line. And Rat Ogres slap in the current edition. Also cost-effective battle line and hammers themselves, by the by, that are rather tough to remove. And this little nutball, just runs around behind them and whips them and gives them +3, I apologize, +3 to run and charge, and +1 to wound.
Yep.
With Crack the Whip. And
only within 13. Pretty generous.
He's got a long whip.
Only with the 13.
If you see the model, you can see why. It is
a
very long whip.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
like cutting off part of his whip with the. There you go. See, a sensor barrier over there. But
Okay.
so yeah, he's first of all +3 to charge is amazing.
Mm.
In an
Okay,
army that relies on teleports.
Teleports.
right. Like the fact that like at the start of your movement phase you whip him and then you can shoot those guys through a null hole, and if they can set up in some way 9 inches away, it's like, oh, we're coming in, right?
Mm.
But in addition, you can often just get there. Like +3 to charge is such a massive charge bonus that you can move up to like 11 inches away from the enemy and still have a pretty decent chance to pull off that charge, right? You're rolling on 8s. That's not it's not undoable at all. Or if you just need to speed them over to a point, like being able to give them +3 charge and then rolling that run out and then stacking on top. If you just need to get them somewhere, it's a huge bonus to run. The fact that it also gives them +1 to wound is just pure gravy train. Honestly, it turns them into pure killing machines.
Now, Vince, surely that would be enough to make him an incredible GC. That must be all, right?
You would think that would be all, but wait, there's more. Yeah, Nick, go ahead.
He can also bring back your pack units when they die for a command point on a 3-up at full strength. And pack units is giant rats, which are also compelling and good in their own right.
Interesting. Yeah.
Or the rat ogres, right? So rat ogres, you're running in 4s or 6s, and potentially 280 points or 420 points worth. He can bring the entire unit back on a 3-up for 1 command point. Not half strength, like inferior death summoning.
Yep.
You did this one game in a battle report, and I got a little triggered because it was after a sequence. Huh? How many? What?
3 times in that battle report.
3. Okay, I was by that whatever time it was. I was very triggered that game by all the nonsense. You were probably rolling very well as well, which we need to. I've appreciated you toning it down recently just a little bit to give everybody else a chance. But all right, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean the fact. Go ahead.
He can only do each unit once,
right?
But he can do it to every unit that dies, and you're unlocking them as battle line as well. So you want to be running them anyway. Giant rats are 60 points, but they have Ren 2 as long as they're at 6 or more models, which is not a hard threshold to make. They're MSU 6. Ren 2 is very good at that price point. So you want to be running those things, and then you get this recursion style meat grinder on your rat ogres and your screen that becomes really strong. And if your opponent can't shoot him off with something, stuff's going to be coming back all game.
Exactly. And remember, those rat ogres are 24 wounds because they're 6 wounds each now. Right. So
6 wounds each.
Yep.
And they come in outside of 9, but they've got shooting, and then the movement, and the charge bonus, and
base move of 7. So even just like you said, +3 to run and charge. Wow, really good. Cool.
Yep. It's really solid. So I mean, yeah, again, all for 90, all in a 90-point body, amazing, right? So just and every one of these guys just is doing these power pairs. Okay, next up, our Plague Priest. First of all, 1 is good, 3 is better. They love to be taken in multiples. They start bonusing each other's chants. Do you like, basically chanting on a 2-up easily and triggering Great Plagues on very low numbers? I do. I know I love it. They can also get the bonus to chant from null holes or from mystical or things like that might happen to exist. Their prayers themselves are just like their sort of stock things you might select are extremely powerful buffs to the 2 units they're mainly unlocking as battle line, which are Plague Monks and Censer Bearers, both of which have play. Plague Monks stand apart as one of the few units with a built-in on-scroll bonus to charge, making them interesting as null-hole targets or tunneler, the little gnaw drill tunnel weapon team. Its name is eluding me at the moment, but you know what I'm talking about, where you can take another unit off board, pop up, set them up at 9. They are charging in and on an 8, so pretty solid. Censer Bearers are also just liquid hot death.
Warp Grinder. There we go.
Thank you, Warp Grinder. Yeah, I could not remember the name of it. I mean, I think people. I don't know if people just don't read the Censor Bearer scroll or what happens there, but Censor Bearers are incredible. They have the attack profile of shield annihilators. Okay.
Yeah.
But you get 5 of them instead of 3 of them.
And they get a bonus attack when they charge.
And they get a bonus attack when they charge, so they have a better than they get a better than than the shield annihilator, because they're 4 attacks each on 3s, neg 1, 2 damage. So they come in 5 of them with 20 attacks. Right? On 3s, neg 1, 2 damage. And by the way, that's assuming they didn't get any of his buffs, because he has other buffs he can give them. Bonuses to
attack.
Including a bonus attack. Let's just go ahead and set it to 5, baby. Why stop at 4? Get them right up there. So I mean, they can just get in there and do some nasty business. Now they die super easy.
Yeah.
You know, they're neg 1 to be wounded in melee on a 6-up save. That's it. Right, 2 wounds each.
The neg 1 to wound does keep them alive against some things that they shouldn't really survive against sometimes.
Yep.
It makes it easier for your opponent to fluff, but yeah, they die easy.
Incidentally, what's the baseline
90
for these?
points.
Yeah, are we on average running them in 5 or 10s?
Yeah. All 5s. I'm
fives,
hard
okay.
5s. Their bravery's not good enough to justify them actually running away in a larger unit.
Yeah,
They're also 1 in reach on 32s, which makes it a little bit awkward.
Yep. So, but like little missiles of 5 as sort of like beta strikes behind, and this guy turns all that on and buffs them, right? And does all the good, you know, like he's still got, again, there's like being a priest in this game is obviously really good, right? Because prayers are prayers and prayers are good. And the fact that he's, what's that?
You can't unbind a prayer.
Right, you can't unbind a prayer. And the fact that they are some of the most reliable, especially when they start getting in numbers, the fact that they are some of the most reliable priests in the game, the fact that it opens up the Great Plagues, which some of which are like straight up crazy good if you're moving them up with the line. It just fantastic unit.
I also saw there's a battle tactic. Complete this tactic if 3 or more prayers chanted by different friendly Clan Pestilence priest are answered in this turn. So that sounds like that might be actually one of the viable battle tactics in this book.
It is,
yeah. If you prayers, it's very reasonable. It's very easy for them to get rerolls, and to be, if they're together, if you've got 3 prayers to priests to do this, it's very easy for them to be on +3 to pray with a reroll. So whatever prayer they're going for, they're going to get on a 2 rerolling. So yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, so it just becomes like the world where they can. One of the funny things is because they're priests, a lot of their prayers are shorter range. So you might do the buffs or whatever on your unit depending. But one of the funny things I've done with these guys just to start triggering off a Great Plague that I wanted, because one of the Great Plagues you're going to select is the bonus to all the rest of the prayers you'll chant throughout the game. And one of the fun things to do is just have all of your little plague priests smite an enemy priest. If there's an enemy priest around, because it's like a 48-inch range on smite. And it's normally on a 2, and they just all do it super easily. And with that huge bonus, you can pretty easily trip into the 6. And just like, everybody smite. And they can very easily just blow away an enemy priest. So hey, don't sleep on your little 3-pack of priests will kill most enemy priests straight up. So that's fun.
If you've ever wanted to build around curse, this is by far the best way to do it.
Yep.
Curse is 9-inch range and prays on a 4. You can get that 4 to be very reliable, and you can teleport yourself to 7 inches out with one of the Vermin Lords, and so you can pop your curse off, and while you're doing it, get a Great Plague on the enemy because you're that close, and then maybe Nahul out again once you're done.
That's what I'm sure. That's what Joe Vucic mentioned. He was one of the Skaven players at Lone Star, Nick, over the weekend. Really good Oklahoma player. He had 2 30 packs of Plague Monks, and 2 Plague Priests, I believe. So I'm sure both with Curse. I'm sure he was leaning into that as part of the combo. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Big Chungus, nothing is specifically allowing them to use a prayer more than once. It's just like you can smite, you can do other things. That's my point. Okay, because it gives you that bit long range. Okay. I didn't mean to imply spamming it. Sorry, Big Chungus, if I said that the wrong way. I just meant you always have that other option. Nick, you want to talk about the bombardier?
Yeah. So he's got long range shooting, and he's a scryer hero, so he can hand out warp sparks to your storm fiends or um, the, the death wheel. The name's escaping me, but whatever scryer units you've got running, he can hand out the warp spark. Doom wheel, thank you. And then he's got his rocket, which is sneaky, scary, damaging. I forget exactly the specifics, but I think it's Ren 2, 3 damage base. He can warp spark himself to make it 4. And then I want to say it's D3 shots, but can go to D6 if he risks himself.
Yeah, man, 18-inch range, D3 attacks, 4s, 3s, -1, 3 damage. And then, yeah, I can get it to D6 attacks.
Yeah, -1 Ren. So, but he can put out quite a bit of hurt. A couple of them can put out a lot of hurt because those warp sparks hit up to 3 scryer units. So if you've got like one block of storm fiends and a couple of heroes with them, you can buff all 3 of them for the extra damage on the shots. And he's just a solid one caster on top of that, right? He's a one cast wizard, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's right.
So just slots in very nicely to the scryer list. He doesn't have any particular utility in melee, and he can't interact with the warp lightning cannons, so the other scryer heroes are solid, but this is the best shooting out of the 3.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those situations where the other raw utility they're bringing in through the sparks, through buffing the units, through opening up the battle line, through the range threat. One of the interesting things about this army is that a lot of your people actually have interesting ranged attacks. Like you can have, obviously you have some real good ranged attacks, but there's a lot of ranged attacks that you can just start shooting off, and like everybody shoots. Just get everybody shooting. Like your obvious things like your gutter runners and your lightning cannons, your Giselle, sure, those are all powerful shooters. But, like your Arch Warlock can click off once a game for a D3 Mortals. Your Bombardier can unleash the rockets. Your Deathmaster can be throwing his stars and tripping off mortal wounds, right? Like your Rat Ogres, half the unit can shoot and like will do damage. Like it's all just damage. It's all just chipping in more damage. Like everybody shoot, everybody throw crap, everybody just get stuff in the air and start doing damage everywhere you can, because you have hammers in the army, but you don't have any like super duper overwhelming hammers. You have just really like you have good, solid, old-fashioned fair damage. So like sensor bearers are amazing, but they don't like blow the doors off of people, right? They're solid, but they're not grand hammer annihilators.
Keep a counter of how many times you say this is a fair army tonight. That's one. That's we're at a good pace here. We're an hour in and we're only.
I can't believe I just said it for the first time. They're absolutely
let's keep
fair.
that up.
Okay. Is Skaven a shooting army, Hades? Can be. You can build it it's one of those armies that actually has quite a different number of ways it can be built. But I don't see it as a shooting army. I see it as a mixed arms army. Like it wants to use shooting to support an overall path to victory. I think going pure shooting is actually limiting in the current season. But certainly there's plenty of people with shots and powerful shots at that. And then, lastly, the engineer, we mentioned it already. Also a scryer hero, also does all the scryer hero things, sparks and battle line and stuff, but also then empowers all your warp lightning cannons to do a lot more mortal wounds and commit suicide and have a good old fun time. So yeah, good stuff. So, it's really incredible that you've got 8 heroes here. All of which have some viability in your list, all of whom are, the thing we're talking about in the new season. Right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I can't think of any other army that has quite this deep of a bench.
So right, we're bringing that much different utility to all your lists.
Yeah, I mean, Tzeentch is up there, but obviously Stormcast. They've got, you can throw a dart and you'll hit some heroes that are decent. So
percent wise, they're definitely on the lower end.
Right, but yeah, that's
yeah. They've got the volume. They probably have 8 good ones out of the 35 GCs that they have. Yeah, sure. Right. Okay, cool. Thoughts and prayers. All right, here we go. I want to talk about some playstyle stuff. Let's talk hammers first, okay? There's actually quite a bit of hammers in this unit, or in this army. Sorry, rat ogres, as previously mentioned, the capability for the +3 to run and charge, fantastic. Storm vermin, don't sleep on them. We'll talk about a combo later with them, but 30 or 30, they do what they do. They all attack. We need to appeal to another base rule of Skaven, that for every 10 models in the unit, you basically get an extra inch to your range to a maximum of 3 inches. So when you're a 20 plus model unit, you just have a 3-inch range, so you can fight 4 ranks deep in a lot of these things. Because a lot of your guys are still on 25 mil bases, so hence 1, 2, 3, 4 with a 3-inch reach. Storm Fiends, I mean, they've already been mentioned. They've been popular for a long time. They are still good. Turns out that putting, very powerful long-range shooting attacks into the air and then also having a bit of melee brute force to back it up is pretty good on a high wound, elite, difficult-to-remove unit. Sensor Bearers, I already talked them up and down. And then Plague Monks. And I think, the argument of like, are Sensor Bearers, is it just worth taking more Sensor Bearers versus taking Plague Monks? I'm not personally a fan of the monks, but as mentioned, there was at Lone Star, somebody ran into a 4-1 this weekend. There are some tricksy tricks you can pull with Plague Monks if you're engaging in sort of teleporting shenanigans because of the built-in +1 to charge, which is potent. But there's options. That's the point.
Their volume of attacks is exceptional. Yeah. So you are pairing them with Curse. It's a natural fit. They've got a War Scroll ability that improves their attacks on 6s, but you'd rather have just a mortal wound on 6s. There's a couple other hammers that are worth mentioning. The Warbringer, like I said, is among the most damaging monsters in the game. The Hell Pit Abomination is now cheap enough that it really warrants consideration in almost any list. And it's not an all-purpose hammer in the way that a lot of things are, but it's an amazing anti-horde or anti
yes
hammer.
Yeah,
very reliable mortal wounds based on the number of models in range. I think it deserves consideration in this list as well.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah, Avalanche of Flesh, 3-inch range. You roll a number of dice equal to the number of models in the target unit. Reroll any of the dice of the minute charge move, and then on top bracket, 2 ups.
Yeah.
So
2 ups,
that's pretty.
Wounds. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty wild. I was curious to get your guys' high-level thoughts on, because I haven't seen that a whole lot yet either, or just in general over the last season and so far into this season. But when I was flipping through the book today, it stood out, and obviously it's got a special table where you can take a particular ability from a list of options. Some of them are pretty intriguing. Vince, are you buying any Hell Pit Abomination stock?
I want to. He's still just a little bit too rich for my blood, is my honest answer. Like, I think his points down was good. He needs to come down a little more, is my honest answer. The ultimate problem with him is he is still quite random in how he moves. And that's like, we don't have the squig fix for him. And that random movement is really a killer, combined with the fact that he is quite sensitive to shooting. Like, he is a big distraction Carnifex in the truest sense of the word. Yeah. If he were a little cheaper, he'd be an even better distraction Carnifex. So, but it depends on what other threats you have and how else you're engaging them and where you're taking their attention. I think he can certainly be a valid part of a list even now. And look, if he does get into the right targets, if you're able to pick the right fight for him, I mean, he will do a pretty egregious amount of damage. The biggest problem with him is he's rather susceptible to being worn down before he gets into the fight.
With Skitterleap, Dreaded Skitterleap, is essentially every War Scroll in this army eligible? Every Skaven War Scroll eligible to be teleported?
No. So Skitterleap is your heroes. Your heroes are your heroes that are 12 wounds or less, off the top of my head.
Okay, so we don't have a way to teleport this guy. Or do we?
I mean, he can jump in the null hole. Like
in the null holes, right? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But like, one of his abilities is pretty dumb. It sets his move to 7 and gives him an auto 7-inch charge. It's like so he just auto fails every sort of roll like that.
Yeah, that was weird.
Right. I really hate that rule. There's a couple in there that are fine. if he gets charged, if he gets flat-footed, he can go down pretty easy, and that's the problem with the points on him right now. Is it's sort of like the points are sort of estimating his upside, but not capturing his downside. But he does do a lot of damage. The Warbringer I completely support. That dude's a straight wrecking ball.
One of the help hit upsides is that you can get the reroll on his ability to pop back up when he dies.
Yeah.
And anything that doesn't die to one activation is always a little bit compelling. With that reroll, you get a little bit better.
Yeah, look for 5-up.
Come back.
Yeah, 5-up with a reroll. It's interesting. Yeah.
That makes him a little bit more interesting. 210, like you said, Vince is a little bit on the expensive side, but he's a monster. He does things. I like him right now at 210. I think if he comes down anymore, it'll be kind of an auto take.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd still see him in there in every army as my argument. Or obviously, when we say every army, we don't actually mean every army, but in a preponderance of armies. I think if he was at like 190, you still wouldn't see him all the time, but he'd kind of feel better to me. That's probably, I think, the spot where he feels right to me, just given the risk you're taking. But again, please don't anyone misunderstand me as me saying he's bad. That is not the words I'm saying. We want to make sure we're being 100% clear here. Okay. They also have multiple viable ranged threats that can do, put out significant punishment at range. As I mentioned, I listed the top 3 here, but like there are a lot of just rando shooting attacks in this army that you should be taking and should be capitalizing on and can be valuable. But, really right now that comes down to Gutter Runners, Warp Lightning Cannons, and Giselles. Gutter Runners because you're talking about 3 shots per model on, so a standard pack of 5 for 100 points puts out 15 shots. Every 6 is a mortal wound. 4s and 4s otherwise. The Warp Lightning Cannons, if you're going to take them, you have an engineer caddy who's with them, who's turning them into a 24-inch range, 27-inch threat range. Roll the first die and then set your target number and then roll 12 dice. Every 1 does a D3 mortals to you. Every other thing that equals or exceeds does a mortal wound to the target. Which is just incredible. Like the times you roll a 1 or 2, you feel like a god. It's just like, Berzap, that thing is dead now. That is dead now. Goodbye, that thing. So that's fun. And then Giselles are probably the weaker part of this list, but they're still certainly viable. Very, very long range, potential to do both mortal wounds and having decent rend. The problem with them, as always, is they are very susceptible to splashy splash mortal wounds. Like you don't want to set Giselles down and line up against and see somebody brought the guy with the meteoric standard in a Stormcast army. You're like, oh no. Because if like one of these dum-dums drops dead, the other ones just run away, like almost instantaneously.
Boy, that guy popped up at Sheffield Slaughter as well, I believe, over the weekend. I think I saw a 4-1 list with Karazai, Vince, and multiple Vexilors. So yeah, Giselles, oddly enough, they are not eligible for sharpshooters. They have, I saw the artillery, whatever keyword profile. I know it's not a keyword, but whatever it's called, battlefield role. There we go.
Correct. So. Literally the snipers who are in a sniper position, balancing their long sniper rifles to take sniper shots, cannot take sharpshooters because we're really good at writing rules in this game. Like why Giselles are still artillery makes the opposite of sense to me. There are so many troops with guns that aren't artillery in this game. Like the Warp Lightning Cannon or Plague Claw, yeah, sure, classic artillery. It's a thing it's a catapult cannon thing. Yeah, great. Like
Giselles are identical in terms of output to Vanguard Raptors, long strikes.
Yep.
And but they're limited because they're single and artillery. If not for those limitations, if they were just a normal unit, you'd see them the same way you see long strikes.
But here we are. And it should be mentioned, of course, they can be sparked like anybody else, though that interacts somewhat poorly with their mortal wounds, but you don't really care in the end. It's like, oh no, 3 damage or 2 mortal wounds. It's like, yeah, I'll take it. It's fine. So that's great.
We mentioned real quickly, Vince or Nick, are you buying Plague Claws at all right now in this season? That's another thing I haven't seen on the table in forever. Plague Claws.
I am on the buy side. They are
Okay.
extremely meta dependent. In
Okay.
the right meta, they are suddenly worth it. I
Mm.
don't know that the meta is there yet, but
Mm.
we see that meta. It's the long rumored return of the hordes. If squigs remain as they are right now, I am on board with Plague Claws as an anti-squig piece of tech.
Okay.
Vince is not.
I'm not.
I'm waiting for the rebuttal. Yeah. All
They
right.
make one attack. That's it. It's a
Easy-
shooting
easy.
unit with one attack.
Everybody knows it's easy to roll 2s and 2s, or I don't know if it's on 2s and 2s. You can get it to 2s and 2s.
It'll be
Clearly,
on.
I mean,
it's on 2s and 2s if you're shooting at the
Yeah.
right target. Yes.
yeah, yeah, it's easy. Yeah, if you play Techless or Larial or anything with 2s and 2s, right, you'll be fine. Yeah.
Oftentimes, against squig herd, they are killing 3 plus d6 squigs.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the concept of the thing. It wants to have a home. They're like, how cheap can we make this stupid thing? It's 120 points. And, we'll make it on 2s and 2s and do 2d6 damage. Is that good enough yet? And collectively, the Skaven player base has just went, nope. It's just not. Now, yes, it should be mentioned that, it does add to Battle Shock as well. Because it adds 2 to the Battle Shock rolls for anybody. That's just like targeted. You don't have to even hit them. You just have to shoot at them. And so, there are plenty of ways, obviously, like, there are lots of ways to negate Battle Shock in the world. There are spells that do it and things like that. Battle Shock immunity is becoming more rare. I'm not saying there couldn't be a world where it's potentially viable, but, in the end, the issue is, even on 2s and 2s, it's just often easy for that to be nothing. So, but it's better than it ever has been. If it's ever even bordered on playable, now is the time. You know what, Nick? Next time I play against my squig buddy, because he runs a lot of he does run a lot of squigs. I got a Maws of Jork player in my group. I've got a bunch of Plague Claws. You know what? Just for you, I'm gonna take like 3 of them. We're gonna see what happens. We'll give it a spin.
Depending on your dice, it will work out beautifully for you.
That's the Skaven way. Anything else on the sort of like shooting or range threats we want to talk about there? I mean, I didn't mention Storm Fiends because I mentioned them up above because they're sort of both. They're like a hammer and a range threat and they're in everything all in one. They slice, they dice, they Julian fry, but they should also, of course, be considered in here, as obviously one of their builds is very ranged focused.
Just reiterate, gutter runners. People sleep on them. Incredibly efficient damage. 3 shots each. Mortal wounds on 6s. 15 shots out of a 100-point unit.
Yep. I mean, they're just wonderful. So like, and by the way, when you need to, if something's left, they can often charge in and finish it out. Like their mortal wounds are on their melee attacks too, and they make plenty of little melee attacks. They die instantly if they get hit back. So just make sure it's just like they're just there to like clean something up, just a final little cleanup. And get in there and just do the work there. They are horrific sculpts. Yes. Step 1, if you want to play gutter runners, find a 3D print of some kind of ninja rat. There are a million of them. In lieu of Games Workshop deciding to never redo this army, apparently. I'll tell you what my hope is. Do you want to know my long shot hope, Tyler?
I mean, it's next year or bust at this point.
Strap on the tinfoil hat. Here we go. Skaven. We're gonna make the call now. I'm pointing out at left field. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, left field. No, that was right. Left field. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Skaven are the launch box for 4th edition. And next summer will herald the grand re-release of our army. We will we'll get cities in this fall, and then next year in the middle of the year we'll get a full treatment, Seraphon style, city style, Soulblight style, everybody else style, where they've redone their whole stupid army, even though we have the oldest sculpts in the game. Literally, that model that I had the picture of that you can still buy was sculpted in 1993.
Yeah. I say there ain't much else left to resculpt at this point. I think you might be the only one left.
Like,
I
it's
love
30
it.
years old. That's not a joke.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration. I had to go back and pull the actual release dates from the from the database on this, and yes, it's 30 years old. That
Looks
model.
like you got Beast of Chaos as your competition. Surely you're gonna get.
They got some old ones too. Yeah,
That's
but
mainly what
not
I'm
30
seeing.
years old. Anyways,
Yeah.
I've got
So-
a different hot take, somewhat related. I actually think
Mm.
they're going to be the old world launch box.
okay. So we backdoor them in there. That's fine. That'd be a perfectly fine way to get new gutter runners and the things that are old world appropriate. I would accept that. Okay. But I also want to see. I want to see the AOS world of what Skaven looks like. They were always one of the most inventive races. They pushed things like Scryer and Molder are both about advancement more than anything else, right? Like one pushes technology, one pushes flesh crafting, but it was about new and horrible designs, even right up until the end times. That's where we rolled out, things like Storm Fiends, because it was representing the newest tech coming out of the Hell Pit, right? And I want to see what that world looks like, where Skaven have had thousands of years in the mortal realms to invent new stuff. I just think it would be the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, also bring back the Bonebreaker guy. That too. There used to be an option, Tyler, just so you know, to put a Claw Lord on top of a big Rat Ogre, and that was like that could be your mount. And it was like a dude on a Howdah on top of a Rat Ogre. It was super fun. It was just a neat, fun thing. It never had a model, so you always had to custom build your own. It's one of those things. But they don't do those kinds of things anymore. Everything has to have a model now, so bring that back. Anyways, Skaven have deep access to magic and prayers. We've been talking about it the whole time. Solid spell lists, solid prayers, bonuses to chant, bonuses to cast. Great casters that can power up and hit big numbers. I don't know what else to say. Like it's a thing. It's a thing you can do. Now let me talk about Vermin Lords for a minute. Nah, this is the part about bacon muffins. So, one of the things I actually really hate is that the Vermin Lords, who are all double casters, which is cool, are all kind of crappy spellcasters. And what I mean by that is they don't have their own dedicated spell list. They all have a really cool spell on their scroll. They stand apart as most of them having actually almost to a Vermin Lord. They have exceptionally good War Scroll spells. Dreaded Death Frenzy, Dreaded Skitterleap, Dreaded Warp Gale, Dreaded Plague Die thing. I don't remember the one that's a 4-up unit destroyer or horde destroyer. Whatever, they're all good. But
Dreaded
no
13th spell.
Dreaded 13th. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Oh God, yes, Dreaded 13th. Right. But the little boys just outclass them in casting. The Vermin Lords are almost never near null holes just because of the nature of how they need to be operating. They have no bonuses to cast. They can't eat Warpstone. They just end up being very vanilla double casters on giant 400-point monsters, and it's very easy for their magic to just get shut down, which is kind of like it makes me feel bad. The Warbringer picks up the weight by being so very dangerous in melee when built properly that I'm still okay with him. But these are like the important part to remember here about the Vermin Lords is, they're only 13 wound models. Okay. On a 4-up save. Now, yes, they all have a 5-up ward, which is awesome. Okay. And that's great. But most of them are going to struggle to ever make their points back. The Warbringer stands apart because he has both incredible utility and buffs without the need to resort to his magic, although his magic makes it even better. Like, if you can get his magic off, then he has incredible utility. But he's also good in melee. And the Deceiver stands apart because of the 6-inch Dreaded Skitterleap. Like, because he can teleport to 6 inches away. It is such a game-breaking ability to be able to teleport to within 6 inches. But he's often just a featherweight in combat. You'd think he'd be a lot tougher when you look at his War Scroll, but the dude just doesn't end up doing a lot of damage in melee.
You've got a way to give him extra attacks bonus attacks, right?
The same way you're basically you're gonna pick one hero and they're gonna end up with 2 bonus attacks. That's what's gonna happen.
Okay, so he'll get up to 8 attacks at 2s and 2s, minus
If
3,
you
2 damage.
assume you all out or something, yeah, sure.
Right, and then maybe Flaming Weapon. He's a 2 cast. Okay, is there any way other than a Gnaw Hole, standing by a Gnaw Hole to improve the casting with Skitter Leap? Is that
No.
it? Just +1, and that's his. Okay, interesting.
That's his thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that. That is a lie. Okay. Is there any way to improve it in any army you'd ever build? No. Is there actually a way to build to do it in an arm in printed in the War Scrolls? Yes, the Screaming Bell can give you +1 to cast.
Okay,
but it's terrible and random. So there you go. You know, the problem is without Flaming Weapon, without going all out, right? Without like really having those things, it's very easy for him to fluff, right?
Yeah. Nick, you probably have run this guy. I feel like I've seen you run him before, but I was most impressed watching Matthias play the Thankful Deceiver combination with, I think, triple Warp Lightning Cannon in New Mexico. He was on the stream at least 1 or 2 games. He came in second. He went up against Matt Swinney, who was rocking Stormcast, and he was an exceptional distraction Carnifex. He had some way where he can leave combat, maybe even some way to fight first, or make somebody fight last. It was something you would know the details.
Yeah, so we probably had on the Deceiver the Shadow Magnet Trinket, which is fight first. You can activate it, lasts until your next hero phase, I believe is the timing. So on your turn you can do it, and then through the opponent's turn potentially. And then all Skaven heroes, instead of fighting, can retreat.
Okay, all right, yeah.
The monsters on that rule.
Right.
Yeah, you just can't have the restriction on retreating is you can't have you can't scurry away if you're on a
on a mount.
On a mount, yeah. So like the Bell and the Furnace can't scurry away specifically, but the Vermin Lords can.
Yeah. Thankful getting to 6 inches away from a target without them being able to redeploy is really big. Because the way his braziers interact, it's really easy for opponents to kind of negate the effectiveness of them with a good redeploy. So being able to drop him 6 inches out, and so he doesn't have to move, doesn't offer the redeploy, can be very things like Night Haunt, where you can get into a lot of models with the shooting.
Right.
I mean, so, here, like, hold on, Tyler. I'm going to make this point.
Yeah.
Okay, look, like, you got to play fair Warhammer with Skaven. All right, because like, joking aside, we don't have like scrolls that are going to run around in the army and do things like shut off redeploy, right, and stuff like that. You know, you've got what you've got, okay, and you know, so like everybody's going to have, for the most part, their rules against you. You know what I mean? Like we play by what it says in the book for the most part. We don't have a lot of like, let me suppress your ability to access normal game rules. That's been a very popular thing to design recently, right? You think of like what are they? The Unmade in S2D, right? Sure. We just talked about it last week, where they can just skirmish around and shut off redeploy and shut off rally, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot of ability. You think of I'm sure a thing you run in your Nurgle stupid army. Like I'm willing to bet that somebody in your army has overpowering stench. Okay.
Gentlemen, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I did last year, but
okay. Yeah. So like, but that's my point, right? Almost every Nurgle list you run up against, it's just like, you're playing Nurgle, overpowering stench, huh? Oh, surprise, surprise, right? Because it just shuts off your ability to access core game rules. And like, there's you don't find that in Skaven. Like, people are going to be able to access their rules for the most part, right? Now you have to reach out to other generic endless spells or stuff like that, and certainly those can do work, but it's not like on the War Scrolls in the army we have access to that. You know, other people can access those tricks too.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I mean when I say fair Warhammer, right? Like, we're not cutting off. A lot of armies want to cut off your access to the core game. Like, you try to access core rules and they stop you, right? Night Haunt. Nope, you don't get to use Inspiring Presence, right? Or whatever, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. We have nothing that's going to do that.
Just to close the loop, I don't know if I made it clear, but what I was impressed by in terms of the Deceiver as a distraction Carnifex is that combination, Nick, where you can make somebody... So you cast Skitter Leap, it charges into something, does some work with 8 attacks, 2s, whatever, and then your opponent counterattacks it, right? But then you pop the fight last, and then you get out of dodge before they can swing at you.
On
So
their
from
turn,
a
it just strikes first, but yeah, on their turn they come into you. You fight first and retreat.
fight first, sorry, I had it backwards. Yes. So you fight first, you get out of dodge. So that's a phenomenal distraction carnifex tool to have in terms of tempo of a game, where you could turn off the reduce the value of 4 fulminators, which is what happened to Mad, I believe, in that game, right? So anyway, I found that very intriguing from the deceiver standpoint.
Yep. Andrew Gonzalez says, "Do ogres have something like that?" Which I assume you mean like the rules cutoff things. And the answer is no, because they're another fair army. Like ogres are another very classic fair army. They just want to charge you real hard, and play. They also have some fun times in the GCs. By the way, Tyler, did you see how did the I didn't look at the Lone Star results, but how did the
Our favorite list,
the Tyrant Spam list do? Where did he end up?
It was terrible. I think you may have been 1 and 4.
Oh no!
I was so sad. Yeah, I don't have any of the details on it, but yeah, I do know it's gone. That archetype has gone 4-1.
Sure.
But yeah, he had a rough weekend.
Maybe he just had some bad matchups, absolutely. But who cares? It's still a
I mean,
cool list. All right.
absolutely.
And then lastly, Skaven have mobility options. Null holes, skid or leap, bonuses to run and charge all over the place. I cannot state that enough. Retreat, I didn't mention it here, but retreat and charge on your both your core battle line units. Your clan rats and your storm vermin both have retreat and charge built in. Okay. Nice. Incredibly valuable to be able to just be like, nope, over here now. Just like whoop. We're going over here, boys. Let's do this. Right? And so there's just a lot of mobility. Base clan rats have +2 to run. Sounds like the dumbest thing in the world. Incredibly valuable. Incredibly valuable. And retreat and charge, yes. Yep. So just like being able to be like, oh, I need to get this unit over that objective. I'll get there. I can just cover an immense amount of space. Right? It's great.
That reminds me, watching some Skaven games with good players, I feel like I've been watching Brendan from back in the day with his skeleton hordes, where it's just lines all over the place, where you maintain because they're 25 millimeters, you just have 3 models touching. Instead of doing the traditional bow tie, you just have 3 models touching on each end, right? And then you can stretch out the middle 1-inch coherency, and you just get phenomenal reach across the board in terms of your lines and everything. Yeah, I've been seeing that a lot with Skaven players.
Yeah, I hate that. I will openly say I don't do that. I tend to, it's just a personal thing. I hate those lines. I always did. The first time I ever played Brendan was him tracing those dumb skeleton lines all over the freaking board. It drove me crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
Now doing that too, to trail back to their buff pieces that are not wholly within.
Yep.
All right, tricks and tactics. Let's talk it through. Here we go. This is just a sample, and Nick, I want some of your takes here as well. So, some items, but I've got some fun lists here. Okay, the thing we've already mentioned 100 times on this show, and we'll continue talking about, Deathmaster plus the Shadow Magic Magnet. Why isn't that magic? It's a kind of magic. Plus the Shadow Magnet Trinket plus Storm Vermin. This is a very simple trick. Put Deathmaster in your army. Put Shadow Magnet Trinket on him as an artifact. Put Deathmaster with Shadow Magnet Trinket into the unit of Storm Vermin. Move Storm Vermin forward. Allow them to be charged by anything if you need to, because it's very scary. Out comes the Deathmaster, activates the Shadow Magnet Trinket, now fights first. You have to be in, I should state, this has to be in Galatian Command. That's the trick here. So you're putting both the Deathmaster and the Storm Vermin in the Galatian Command battalion, and then Deathmaster activates, fights first with in the ASF part of the turn, or part of the combat phase, and brings along 30 Storm Vermin with him, who, as mentioned, will fight 4 bases deep, and whatever just attacked you is now almost certainly dead, because that is a egregious number of attacks.
Yeah, your Claw Lord can pop +1 attacks on them, or you can use the command for +1 attacks. A lot of ways to juice up those attacks. Fighting 4 ranks is really important here because the bubble is really small on that Galatian command.
Yep.
So you need to have your Deathmaster oftentimes in the middle of them. So the fact that you can get 4 ranks forward means you don't have to spread out so wide. It's real good.
Yep.
What's their base? How many attacks they rock in base? 2?
Yeah, 2 base. But again, it's
Base,
very
okay.
easy to get him to 3. And yes,
Sure.
Ridge said, I will say the one thing that is it can be negated by a smart player charging you in a way that your Deathmaster can't stay wholly within 6. Absolutely true. Like, you got to be very careful with that. There's counterplay to it, but it's just a wonderful trick. And hey, it's super fun also. But yes, there's certainly counterplay that a smart player can play around because of the size of that footprint of 30 Storm Vermin vis-a-vis the bubble you're trying to do for Galatian Command. Skitterleap and Dreaded Skitterleap, these make their way here all on their own because the way they interact with Nullholes, as previously mentioned, teleporting and then popping back over through a Nullhole. So you go over, you do your thing, you come back, you come home. You've got very low cast value teleports from the Gracier, the Verminlord Deceiver. Great for battle tactics, battle plans that care about the placements of GC. This is just getting your heroes in the position you need them to be in is often a slam dunk in this army. And the Grey Seer, as previously mentioned, can power out a super spell a turn. So if you happen to need to really power through that teleport, you often have the ability to do so with the Grey Seer. Like if you really need to get that GC to a place, nom nom on some rocky rocks, and they'll probably find their way over to where they need to be.
These interact really nicely with endless spells, short range endless spells in particular,
Yep.
Warp Lightning Vortex and Purple Sun, things like that, where you can teleport a caster up and then unload your payload and then potentially teleport it back.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yep. Seen that a lot.
Smash Rat, only for the bravest and the boldest is this build. Warning, only do this build if you're a rat of the highest courage. Okay, like this takes the guts. This is the Arch Warlock, your command trait. You put the Devious Adversary on him, which is effectively +2 attacks to his profile. He has 2 different attacks, so he's getting +4 total out of it. You give him Flaming Weapon, of course, which he can always eat a rock to power out a more powerful cast if he needs to. Remember, he's got his rocks he can eat, which the important thing they do in the spellcasting phase is let him reroll cast rolls as part of a double caster. He can also, like, his sort of standard cast might just be to Flaming Weapon and Mystic Shield himself and be like, all right, let's go. And then his magic item, you got a choice here. You can either go for the Arcane Tome if you want to turn him into a triple caster, so he could also put something, put like the shield up on himself or cast his own lightning spell or whatever. Or you can just give him the Griff Feather Charm out of the new season, so he's got a 5-up ward. Actually quite useful on this guy because then he'll be 3-up, 5-up, which is a very good save profile. His GC trait is either Fueled by Gurish Rage or Tunnel Master, depending on what you want. Either give him the 3-up to make sure that he absolutely, positively, hopefully won't die at the end, or Tunnel Master to move him around. It depends on, like, do you have the rats to skitter leap him and stuff like that as to how necessary that particularly is. It gets even better if you have a Claw Lord with a Warpstone Charm as a buddy who wants to follow him around, and they become a little pack of death. The two of them, the two heroes, just boldly roaming around the board, killing things. Like, and if you happen to be fighting someone where they don't have any real ranged power, like if you're fighting another melee army, then the two of them can just go wander free form and not have to worry too much about anything they're going to run into. The other part of that combo that I'm not mentioning is in the combat phase, he can eat a rock. To give himself +1 to hit and wound.
Okay. Oh, nice.
So that puts him down on 3s and 2s with his main attacks instead of 4s and 3s.
-2 Ren, look at him.
Oh, yes. Yeah. -2 Ren, 2 damage, and -2 Ren, 3 damage, baby. And that goes to you're going to overcharge the Storm Halberd. Rolling ones be damned, who cares? Like, just do it. Just do it, which is another reason to take the Griff Feather Charm. That way you got a chance to shrug off some of the mortal wounds you're going to inevitably do to yourself. But you're gonna make D6 +2 halberd attacks and 3 claw attacks. So this dude will get in there and do work. And by the way, not an expensive boy. Somebody called him a discount. Warbringer, and I agree. Like, with this build, he's 150 points. Like, I mean, he is one of the most destructive little dudes. And this is all on a 32 mil base.
Yeah.
Right?
Getting this guy fighting in the hero phase with the heroic action. Jesus. Step aside, exalted heroes.
Yep.
Smash
So
Rat is here. I look forward to hating him. All right.
he's great. I've played this guy a ton of times, and I'll tell you what, he always works for me. This guy, like 100%
Mm.
of the time, this guy works 100% of the time. I love this little dork because I just kind of hold him where he needs to be near units right now in the current season to keep him sort of immune to anything I don't want him. And then once I
Yeah.
feel like I've got their range threat contained or have them distracted with other things, he gets out there and starts doing the dirty business. Just starts lifting units up off the table.
It's very silly that the two casting wizard in Skaven of all places plays like we want a combat hero to play.
Right.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
he has all the tools, right? Being able to give him +1 hit
Mm.
wound, being able to buff his attacks, being able to buff his damage, being able to give him the ward save, being able to give him the I don't die save, right? And then again, yep, exactly. If like when you have the Claw Lord fighting the same thing he's fighting, so they're neg 1 to save, and he goes to rend 3, I mean, it's just like, oh god. I mean, he will really tear things up off the table. So the only way he'd be better is if he was base 3 to hit instead of 4. So
Yeah, that's one thing keeping him a little bit in check. That Warpstone charm, is that tethered to a specific phase or just
Verminous
any
hero.
time?
It's a Verminous hero. That's the key.
Verminous hero, but is it phase locked?
No,
Warpstone charm, is it combat phase only?
I don't think so.
I think it's
Okay,
just
we
when they're
go.
within 3 inches of the
All right, here, let me pull it up.
Yeah, I don't remember.
One of the bears. Wait, that's not. Where the hell is it? Warpstone shard, Clenvertimus. Track 1, enemy units within 3. Yeah, it's not
Right.
locked. Okay.
So I mean,
Nice.
it plays like a tiny purple sun around you,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Like that's what you're paying for. Because most of the time when you're taking purple sun in this army, you're often doing it now just to get the extra neg 1 to save. Oftentimes as part of like some kind of plan of either shooting the crap out of them and or bringing a bunch of plague monks in, as we'll see in a list, or as you mentioned in the list over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
So Smash Rat does the work. And with his little buddy, yeah, then he gets free purple sun. Plague Swarm. This is just multiple plague priests with the ability to easily trigger great plays and splash mortal wounds to kill enemy GCs and do all those kinds of things. Like you actually have quite a bit of splashy, interesting targeting mortal wound options that can just go ahead and fire GCs right off the table with this.
They're very limited. That they're basically all either closest enemy unit, or closest enemy hero. And the closest enemy hero one is one that opponents should be very careful to play around. But there is counterplay, right? There's the ability to screen their Cs for most of the mortal wounds.
Yep. And we talked about the sort of plague play earlier. And then finally, sharpshooters. Skaven don't actually care about drops. So your gutter runners who are infantry can actually all go into sharpshooters. Like that's just a thing you can do. One of this battalion that they put in here that they thought was going to counter their GC thing, but nobody wants to take it because everyone wants to be low drop. Screw that. In Skaven, I'm like 12 to 14 drops every time. And like, of course I'm going to do that. And then why not throw those guys in sharpshooters and just let them then pick off GCs with their mortal wound throws? Like then they get to ignore enemy GC rules, and they can pop up. You know, they just pop up and then zip zap, die. That's it. Just throw some rocks. So yeah, there you go. Those are some. And what else? What other things, Nick, did I miss? What other fun sort of tricks and tactics? What Skaven-y tricks?
Well, I mean the double pile-in from Triple Master Clan Hero has some fun interactions with like Doom Wheels. Doom Wheels are questionable maybe, but they're certainly a lot of fun. And they do mortal wounds every time they finish a move within an inch of the enemy or move over an enemy. Very high movement, 4d6 random movement. But with the double pile-in from Master Clan, they can do mortal wounds on a 2-up when they move over a unit and then end outside of 3. And then they can do mortal wounds when they charge the unit, and then mortal wounds when they pile in the first time, and mortal wounds when they pile in the second time from that second from Master Clan. Which Master Clan is when you pile in the first unit in your army during a phase, all of your other units that are in combat can make a pile in. So that's a fun play. I really like the Doom Wheels in that specific build. Like I said, a lot more fun than they are effective, but their
Are
shooting
you
profile there.
are you always chucking the dice with the 2d6 and hoping you don't roll double?
So you always overcharge the shooting, never overcharge the movement.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. All
Because
right.
when you overcharge the movement,
That's
your opponent gets to move up, and that's real bad.
it's kind of interesting. I mean, you get a purple sun out, -2 rends on
The
that
shooting
profile.
attack on the Doom Wheel is not bad.
Yeah.
It's not
The
what it
combo-
used to be. Like back in my day, you see how the Doom Wheel used to work, you see, Tyler, was back when we'd play jacks down at the soda shop. Your Doom Wheel used to be able to shoot its lightning through buildings and intervening impassable blocking terrain, and would generate d6 hits of a random strength of the artillery die, meaning if you rolled well, it did d6 strength 10 hits, and boy oh boy was that good. Because you had 3 of those shots. So anywho, it's not as good as it used to be, but it's still good.
The Vermin Lord you didn't mention, the Warp Gnaw Vermin Lord, is exceptional.
Yeah,
270
still around.
points, 275, or was 275. I'm not sure which way he got adjusted, but he's just as good as the other Vermin Lords at a discount price. Devious Adversary is something that you basically always take in a Skaven list on one hero, unless you're a very exclusively shooting list. So having heroes that don't depend on Devious Adversary is really good.
That's
So
+2 attacks.
yeah, yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Breach can function just fine without it, so I like him as a second Vermin Lord. But that's a trick, I guess. Yeah, it's a fun army to play. Like I mentioned earlier, the Deathmaster popping out and counting as 10 on objectives will win games. Just
That's a cool idea.
objective from your opponent that they were counting on will win games.
Especially as mentioned that they can pop out after the unit's been killed. You don't have to actually reveal them, so you don't risk them. They waste all their attacks. They kill the unit. He pops out with 1 mortal wound and then sits there being like, okay, you're still locked in combat and I'm 10 guys. So
You fought, you're done.
Yeah, you're done. Like, that's it for you now. Okay. It's a crazy strong ability that gets underestimated a lot. Brandon S said, what is the core of this army if there is one? And Warpstone Enjoyer said, I can give you 4 to 5 decent lists, and the only unit they'll have in common is maybe Clan Rats. And I agree with that. Like, Clan Rats are ultimately the base. They're one of the most efficient cheap chaff units in the game. You get 20 wounds for 100 points. They restore a D3 models every battle shock phase, not just yours. They have +2 to run in the retreat and charge on them. I mean, they don't do any damage. Effectively, you treat them as a unit that does 0 damage. They are worth nothing in combat. They are warm bodies that stand in the way. But they're incredibly valuable. I almost never leave home without my Clan Rats. So it's just... They just end up being like one of your best body to points ratios to just get in there, soak up wounds, be on points, do the things you need units to do. So, in the world of chaff, they are maybe one of the best.
The Plague Furnace, which it gives a big bubble of battle shock immunity, is deceptively tanky. It will tank way more than than your opponent certainly will think that it does. It's -1 to hit if it's near friendly, because all of these non-monster heroes are -1 to hit if they're near friendly, 3 or more. It's -1 to wound in melee, and it has a 5-up ward, 4-up save, 14 wounds. I think it's on.
Sounds about right. Yeah, 15, one of the two.
It just doesn't die
15.
at 300 points, and then gives this battle shock immunity. If it didn't need to be pushed, it would be a lot better. Does some solid mortal wounds in melee.
Oh yeah.
Wild consideration.
I charged in Tim Protectors one Tuesday night. Just let's see what this thing does. And I walked away with like 6 Protectors dead after a Great Plague and the mortal wounds that it was doing to me. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Would you say it's sneaky good? Does it qualify?
I would.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it's perfectly valid, and it's not that it's ironically it's the much better of the two chariots, and you know it's not that expensive. That battle shock immunity bubble becomes higher value every day, right? Is what I'll say. And so depending on the particulars of your army, it may be extremely valuable. But the problem is eventually that dumb thing's going to end up sitting there on its own because you're going to run out of rats to push it around.
That's what happened in the
That's the problem with it. Like apparently Kane is allowed to just get chariots that are full of blood and can drive themselves around, but rats with all of their technology, we can't. Like, we literally have a giant wheel that drives itself around the board, but we can't crack the make this thing move on its own technology. So, I don't know. Whatever. It's fine. I mean, it's such an incredibly obvious Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, yeah, it is a problem. Especially as the game goes on. So, okay. Let's look at some lists. And this first list, I do have a mistake. I realized it after I had already copied it over, so I'm sorry in advance, everybody. I apologize. So I made a mistakey in my first list here. Please forgive. Please to forgive. Okay. So here's my first list. We got this has the Smash Rat general. Okay, in the Arch Warlock. We got Slink. We didn't talk about Slink because he's not a GC since he's unique. But old Slink Skittershank and his boys, I cannot explain. It is so hard for me not to put these 5 dopes in a list. I love these guys. They are liquid hot death.
Yeah.
They can pop up closer. They don't have like they don't have to pop up 9 inches away. They pop up closer than that. Pop out of terrain. Very valuable. D3 mortals on on Slink's shooting and melee and their from their Eshin toxins, really really good. This is also using the Deathmaster Shadow Magnet Trinket Storm Vermin combo, so sure, why don't you? And then we've got a Master Molder and 4 Rat Ogre buddies, because why not? We've got a Claw Lord to follow around we don't have the Warpstone Charm because I ran out of stuff, but that's fine. There's probably a way you could build this to do that. But he's just there to be a +1 attack thing for the Storm Vermin or whatever he needs to do. And we've got a Grey Seer with Skitter Leap because of course we do. 20 Clan Rats. Already mentioned the Storm Vermin and the Rat Ogres. 5 Gutters. So that way we've got 3 units that are off board, popping up and in, dropping mortal wounds like it's hot. And then we've got 5 Plague Sensor Bearers just to be around. They're just around. They're just a nice little beta strike to sit behind one of the Clan Rats and have fun. Or to sit behind the Storm Vermin and have fun, or whatever. We've got a Warlord Battalion, a Sharpshooters Battalion, a Galatian Command, and a Galatian Veterans. Let's just use all of them. See if you can spot the error. I'll just tell you the error. The error is that I accidentally put the Rat Ogres into the Sharpshooters Battalion, and they shouldn't be in there because they have too many wounds to be infantry.
Too many wounds, yeah, right.
Correct. I clicked the wrong units when I was putting things in there, so sorry. Oopsie-doo. I noticed it afterward when I was managing the 4 battalions and like scrolling up and down and assigning everything. I screwed one up. So sorry about that, everybody. All that just with a pretty simple 1990, 149 wounds, good old 14 drops. Can't go wrong.
Nick, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's got a lot of neat pieces, and I think it shows the modularity of the book. Right?
Yeah.
Master Molder and 4 Rat Ogres, and they are good enough that without any other Molder support or nod to Molder, they are an incredible addition to the army. They could be in any Skaven list, right? Any Skaven list that has that many points, they will fit in beautifully. Likewise, the Deathmaster and Storm Vermin, same story. They're a power pair. They can slot in anywhere. Slink is, like you said, just incredible. And then Sensor Bears, there's a lot of ways to juice them up, but using them like this, where they're just 5 dudes that are going to slap something off the table, is perfectly valid, perfectly viable. There's nothing forced about a list like this. You can just pull in the pieces you want. You could easily swap out the Gutter Runners and their 200 points for a Warp Lightning Cannon and work in an Engineer and be a long-range shooting threat instead of a close-range deep strike shooting threat, and that would be fine too, right? This just shows how flexible the book is.
Yep. Absolutely. Ridge says this list looks so similar to what I ran against Bud last week on the channel. Awesome, except I had 3 rattling guns instead of Slink and had 5 battalions. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's just exactly what you were saying, Nick. Like all these little pieces, you can just move around, right? Like if you could, Slink could go, and as you bring in the 3 rattling guns, those can also go in sharpshooters, as has been mentioned. Hey, why not let your machine guns target, GCs and stuff? Like, sure. And it's so liberating to not have to worry about battle regiment. Let me just say that. You can just hey, let's actually play with these battalions. Let's see what these things are all about,
Yeah, you don't have to combine the gutter runners because you need to fit into a certain number of slots, right? You don't have to worry about that.
Nope.
Yeah. And the way the sub-factions are these soft incentives with no hard line forcing choices is great.
Yep.
Yeah. I hate to say it, Vince, this looks like a pretty fair list.
It's a pretty fair list. Yeah, that's the thing. But it's got a lot of outs. It has a lot of mobility. It has a lot of interesting play to it. It'll, you've got some interesting off-board play, some ambushing units, some different ways you can mess around and sort of, play traditional Warhammer to interact and mess with the enemy's plans,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all fair. It's all fair Warhammer.
Have you played this or something like this?
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
the new season?
Yep.
Okay.
I have. I've run a list like this once, but this is a variation on something I've been running for a while. Like this looks, pretty close to an average-ish list I've played many times over the past since the book came out, effectively, right? I've played this once in the new season, and it was incredibly fun.
Yeah, this struck me as a list that particularly is oriented around like the first pass at reading the 10 of the new season on what the new season wants you to do. When I look at this, I see 2 obvious pieces, 30 Storm Vermin and 4 Rat Ogres, but then you have a number of these modular pieces that have some play. I'm learning the Arch Warlock has interesting play. Slink has play. Then you have utility pieces with the Grey Seer that maybe it's got some damage spells I don't know that it can do as well, other than a cheeky little Arcane Bolt. But yeah, it's not overbearing when it's not straightforward. Whereas we went through a number of Lone Star lists, and they were, Gavin's here's 15 chosen, here's 15 knights, deal with it. Right? I guess the Storm Vermin have their trick with the trinket, but yeah, I do wonder how well this will be able to play into this current season. Smaller number of average objectives. You definitely have a lot of GCs, which is going to help you achieve battle tactics for GCs, which it sounds like you need to be doing because the book ones are pretty bad on average. So
yeah, I mean, remember, 5 out of 6 of these guys can complete any GC related thing, right? And by the way, some of the GC related stuff is go kill things, and hey, guess what? Smash Rat will get there, right? Like he can go pick somebody else up, right? That is a doable thing.
Yeah. So I guess. Yeah, I mean, you've got some. It looks like you have some combo damage plays. You got 3 shots each from the gutter runners.
3 shots
so
each
15.
from the gutter runners. Yep.
Yeah, so you got 30 shots there. I don't know if you have a way to buff both of them. Like you could buff one of them. Presumably,
you don't really need to. You're rolling for hot sixes. So you don't really need to worry about the buff.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
the bonus to hit wound against one. One.
Against one hero, you just get to pick +1 to hit and wound. Right. I mean, and also remember, Slink and his boys bring in another 8 shots of their own. Also, but doing D3 mortals on 6s instead of just 1. So So
I wonder how. Number one, I wonder how well this list could brawl on primary scoring. Would be the first question I would have. I don't know if it's going to be doing that sufficiently well this season.
Yeah, I mean, my answer has been pretty well from what I've been able to do so far, and that's mainly because of things like I'm gonna let you lift my clan rats, right? Like you're gonna make me do whatever I do. I'm not gonna have the choice of tempo, and that's fine. The clan rats are gonna be there for a little bubble wrap. Maybe you lift them, maybe you don't. If you don't lift them, then I'm able to keep him battle shock immune if I'm able to save one of them, right? Then I'll just retreat him out and let the other units come in, and I'll just let him sit down there and start regenerating D3 every battle shock phase and become a deck chair sitter on the back line, like floating around until they can be back in the fight later on, right?
Right.
And generally, like the counter punch of the storm vermin, the rat ogres, the sensor bearers.
Yeah,
like,
so they're your beta strike. Yeah, okay.
right.
It's giving me some Daughters of Cain feel with the melee-oriented Daughters of Cain. You know, a fragile army, you have to be very thoughtful about the screens doing the screening and the hammers doing the hammering, as opposed to the hammers getting hammered and getting taken off the table and you lose the game, right?
Right.
So, yeah, okay.
And remember, like all Skaven, you can play a little risk it for the biscuit. Like if you want to get a little fishy with the rat ogres, you can do so. You can missile them off, get them into a situation where they're gonna kill a lot of stuff but get torn down, and then know that on a 3-up they're gonna come back, that they're gonna pop right back into existence near the Master Molder, right? Who can be over near some other battle line protected, right, after he's whipped him forward and sent him off to go, because that buffy gives them last until your next movement phase.
Cool.
Right. So let them go nuts. Just send them out there. They go ham. They tear some stuff down. Sure, maybe they die. It's like 24 wounds on a 4-up save. If they can get brought down, okay, such is life. And then on a 3-up, they're back. Bing.
Yeah.
See if you can do it again. You know, it's there because remember, it's very easy to get them to 2s and 2s, neg 1, 2 damage on their attacks, 4 attacks each, and they also double hit on 6s.
Yeah.
Okay, like they have built-in double taps.
I was very, like I said, yeah, Nick, watching your game, or one of the games I've seen, I was very impressed by them, what they could do for their points. So, yeah.
I think, I'd make a couple changes here. I'd probably pull the Griff Feather Charm and make that either Skaven Brew or Warpstone Charm. And I'd lean toward Death Frenzy in this list instead of Skitterleap, because you are going to be in a lot of scenarios where you're expecting to lose a unit, and so if they can lift what went into them in the exchange, that's really good. But those are personal preference choices. I think it's a
what's Skaven Brew doing?
+1 attacks, but it does D3 mortal wounds to the unit you put it on.
Okay.
So you put it on in the hero phase, give them +1 attacks. It can further juice up things like the rat ogres, which then can be healed by the Master Holder. Or make the storm vermin even more killy, which they typically don't need, but
it's another way to get at the +1 attack. Like there's some Skaven Brew is such another, we didn't mention it all, but it's such a good magic item because it can give that +1 attack to different units. As you mentioned, the rat ogres can heal out of it. The storm vermin don't generally care about losing D3 guys, like, oh no. And it's not conflicting. Like one of the problems with the Claw Lord's +1 attack is it's happening in the combat phase when you may want to be all out attacking or doing something else, whereas this is just a hero phase buff that gets locked onto them, and then they're good to go, and now they can be happy and get other combat phase buffs. So absolutely, Skaven Brew is another hot, often common pick by me for sure. This one I really just wanted to showcase Smash Rat more than anything, and he soaks up a lot of the oxygen in the room. Okay, let's look at another list here. Go ahead, scroll down. There we go. Is this the... No, that one's still mine. Sorry. Okay, here we go. All right, yes. All these are just text. All right. By the way, I want you to know, Tyler, I remade all these lists you sent me to get this because... just so you know, you cannot forward lists like that. It generates garbledy goop of nothing that I can actually copy and print. Okay. But that's fine. So these aren't, like, I have the battalions assigned. I don't know who was in what battalion. I couldn't be bothered to take the time and figure it out and retrace out who was in what battalion.
Oh, are we into one of Jacob's list here? Or
yes.
Is this still
So
yours?
Yeah, this is Jacob's. Yeah. So you want to introduce this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Jacob Brandon, he was the highest ranked Skaven player for ITC last year. Did really well. I'd reached out to him and he sent us some thoughts and a couple of lists, and this was the first one. So I might let you just go through it here.
Sure. So he's very, very interesting, different take. So once again, we're pulling the Deathmaster Shadow Magnet Trinket trick here with the Storm Vermin and the Galatian Command. Then everything else is going to be wrapped up into a Warlord. He's using the Claw Lord as his general. With powerful Alpha and the Warpstone Charm and the Fueled by Gurish Rage. This guy's just going to be very hard to kill, so that he can... Fueled by Gurish Rage is doing a lot of work here to just power up his extra attacks and keep him alive, and because he wants to be in the fight, giving people that neg 1 to save, and then just reaping the benefits of a bunch of extra attacks. The Grey Seer has Death Frenzy for the reasons you mentioned earlier, Nick, of like you're going to be doing some trading with your Storm Vermin and stuff like that, so let's keep that to be the most choppy valuable trade. And then we have the engineer who's got a little shield because he doesn't need more and more warp power, because this guy's point is to mostly power up warp lightning cannons and just use a spark on Jezzail's. So he's going to sit back there with your artillery crew, which is double cannon, double Jezzail. He's going to sit back there with them. He's going to use his magic spark to give the Jezzails each some bonus damage, and he's going to overpower both the cannons and create this little firing platform of death of crazy damage coming out of Artillery Hill. And then you've got a big giant unit of gunner runners that pops out, and then 2 small units to sort of skirmish and cause problems behind their lines, and then 20 clan rats to act as very basic chaff. So very different take on the list. Just shows how sort of versatile it is. It uses one of the same tricks, and yet is a completely different path to victory. Right?
Yeah. So yeah, Nick, real quickly, Powerful Alpha, maybe you said I missed it. What's that do, the command trait? Powerful Alpha on the Claw Lord. Do you guys know the command trait?
The one where you can pop anything?
Oh,
What's that?
Okay, I can look it up. But yeah, Nick, any thoughts on this list?
I think it's good. And like I said, I said it for the last one too. The modularity is here, right? He took 2 pieces or so out of that last list, slotted it in here. Completely different back end to it with the cannons and the Jezzails, long range shooting. That's going to make this play completely different. This is going to be more of a castle style, I would imagine, with the ability to deep strike some gutter runners. But the castle has the carrot, right? Your opponent can't ignore being shot by warp lightning cannons and Jezzails forever.
Sure.
You're going to be able to centrally block out one objective very well with the storm vermin, and then play a harassing shooting role on the other one with the
right.
cannons and gutter runners.
Kind of gunner runners, I would guess part of their job is to help with objective holding after you've cleared off, some models from a unit potentially.
They're only 1 wound a piece, so when you see 15 of them, it's 15
really?
on a bad thing. They're not going to hold a lot.
Sure. Well, yeah, I guess maybe later in the
something. And you're going to unleash hell when they die.
Okay, got it.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, Ridge. Yeah, Powerful Alpha is the first 2 wounds that you suffer in each phase are negated.
Yeah, just saw that here. Yeah.
So again, just keeping that guy alive, right? To just he can be in combat between all these things and just live. And he'll just chip down and slowly gain more attacks, becoming more dangerous while giving everybody that neg 1 to save. And buffing up the storm vermin. Yeah, I like this list a lot. It shouldn't be let's not underestimate the fact that those gutter runners put out 75 shots. Right? Yeah. That's the actual number of shots coming out of them, with 6s to hit being mortal wounds.
Total. Yeah, for the 25. Yeah.
Point for point, they do more damage than Sentinels. Buffed Sentinels.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is a wild amount of damage that those guys will put out if you're able to basically maintain and navigate the ranges of them. One of the challenges is obviously that you are talking about a 12-inch range on a unit that's popping up potentially 9 inches away, right? So you've got a relatively thin space there, but you can fit them 3 deep. So as long as you can go 3x5, you're good. Everybody's in range. So
you can also shoot them out on an extreme flank and take off whatever's holding that side, and then they get to run and shoot. So even after they're popping out, they've got the mobility to get their shots online in the next turn.
Yep. And because they're the faster base move of 7 inches, the run actually ends up making a big deal when you've got that unit running around and shooting at 10 inches with a 12-inch reach. Having a 22-inch threat range is pretty respectable on average. So, yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, seems pretty good.
Cool stuff. And this one's 123 wounds with 13 drops. Again, just so you're going to see all these drops be 1 million, because who cares? Who cares? Ever. It's so liberating. Free yourself from the shackles of Battle Regiment. Join the Horde today. And then this is Jacob's other list. So this one's using the Engineer with Griff Feather Charm and the Lightning Shield again. He's got the Deathmaster with Devious Adversary and the Shadow Magic and Fueled by Gurish Rage. Then he's got big boy Thankful. We haven't talked about him much because obviously he's a big monster hero. But obviously still quite good using the projectors. Again, with that 15 gutter runner pack, 20 rats, 20 clan rats, 20 clan rats, 5 gutters, 5 gunners, and then he has the the artillery hill again, but this time we've also got Launch and the Soul Seeker in here who can shuffle around Thanquol and make him very scary as he can be dropped off very close to them in a period where they don't want him to be dropped off like that. It makes him very, 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 very mobile, right? Obviously.
Oh yeah.
In a way that makes those projectors maximum scary.
And Thanquol, at the end of the day, is a spell dom too. He's got plus 3 to cast, plus 3 to unbind, and then the null hole access. He's got an ability to 3d6 cast like a Grey Seer, but you typically don't with him because his bonuses are good enough that with the 3d6 cast, you don't get your bonuses.
Right.
So you typically want to ride on his bonuses. But his unbinding power is a big reason to bring him in a list.
Yeah. Having a double unbinder with +3 is such a huge deal in shutting down the, sort of key spells your enemy is trying to get off. Right. Absolutely. Because it's not like he doesn't need to dispel every spell, or sorry, unbind every spell. He needs to unbind like those 2 spells usually.
He can pass off wounds. He heals every combat phase, and he's got a top of board, so he's sneaky tanky. Yeah.
I kind of have a hard time seeing how he's not number 1, number 2 on the board if you're wanting to try to go 5-0 at a tournament in this season. He just seems so good to me on so many fronts. I mean, for example, Jacob was mentioning that he's thinking about Sentinels, big units in general, squigs, big units of squig hoppers, squig herd with 4 warp fire projectors. That's obviously going to burn down a unit of 36 squigs pretty quickly. But there's just a lot of things in this season that when I think about a lot of the Lone Star lists, that Thanquol feels quite good into, given his spell reliability, even against Teclis, if you can potentially keep him out of unbind range. I mean, Teclis is going to go first. Maybe he moves into unbind range, maybe not. But yeah, I don't know, Nick. He seems really strong to me right now.
The only downside to Thanquol is that when he's bad, he's real bad.
Sure.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
There are a lot of... This is running a 4 warp fire projectors setup, which is, like you said, exceptional into squigs, exceptional into Night Haunt. There's a lot of things that this is incredible into. But then you get some matchups where his damage outside of spellcasting falls to almost 0.
Yeah, like maybe Sons of Bahamut or...
yeah, I mean, not that we're worried about that right now. But, now
3-4-1s over the weekend.
Fair.
3 out of 4 at Lone Star. Yeah, 3-4-1s.
Did the person who was running the Stompa party that we looked at, was that one of the
I believe
4-1s?
so. Yeah, I believe so.
Excellent.
Yeah, so... Yeah, all these content influencers are idiots, in my opinion. So, yeah.
I see no issues there.
It feels a little bit rough to have a model that's 520 points because you always pair them with Lao Shan.
Sure.
Package. It feels bad to ever have that many points be lackluster in a game.
Yeah.
Against something like Varengard heavy Kotet, he's not good, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But he's still really strong.
Yeah.
In enough of the field that he gets you there a lot of the time.
Vince, what do you think about this list?
I like it a lot. I mean, like, I'm not as much of a fan of of sort of the artillery focused Skaven, but I've never been a sad Skaven player, which is what we used to call it back in 7th edition for the just like crazy all shooting lists. Sure. But the nature of the thing is undoubtedly strong. Like the way to think about the way to think about warp lightning cannons is when they're overcharged, you get 2 shots with them on average. Like that's usually what I mean by that is like if you sort of math that out, you're rolling 12 dice. So on average, you roll 2 1s. You take 2d3 mortals, right? Which on average does half your wounds to you or whatever, right? The first time you roll. The second time you shoot, you do all the damage, and then you blow yourself up. That's pretty much the way it's going to work. So it's an artillery piece with its own self-destruct timer, effectively, when you use it like this, right? So and your Jezzails are very fragile, as previously mentioned. There's quite a few things that will just sort of get them gone pretty quickly. as was always the case with like long strikes and similar pieces, right? If the enemy had a way to reach out and sort of kill you first or splash onto you. But it's even more dangerous here because their save is bad, and their bravery is utter trash. So it's very easy for them to run away and things like that. So, but all your shooters are real sensitive to the progression of the game. Does that make sense? Like that's what often holds me back from them. Like all Skaven is on a bit of a timer, because you will tend to. Skaven is about taking risks, and you will sort of like fail enough of those risks over time often that by turn 4 or 5 you get some things that are working against you, unless things break positive. It's always what keeps Skaven from being sort of super powerful is you do a lot of damage to yourself. That's just what happens.
I know this violates your Skaven sensibilities, Vince, what I'm about to say.
Sure.
But it is possible to shoot the cannons without overcharging them.
Don't believe it. Never seen it happen. Like, I'm sure you're telling the truth, but I don't understand.
I love the way they can play in a game theory point of view, where when you are disadvantaged, you load them up and you overcharge, right?
Sure.
And when you're not, when you just need them to do solid, right? You just need status quo to maintain, then you don't overcharge them.
Sure.
In theory, like you said, it's never happened. Nobody's ever
done that. Nah, you go 12 or nothing, baby. Yeah, I mean, there's thank you, Ridge. Absolutely. As Ridge said, heresy. But you're right. There's sort of no reason you can't, like, in the first round, if you've got 2 good shots, try to eliminate 2 targets or put heavy damage in. And then from then on, you 6 and 6 until, like, okay, now's the time I need to kick. And then you turn them back all the way up in round 3 or 4 and be like, okay, let's go.
Or when they're, your opponent's finally going to get to them, so it doesn't matter if they die anyway.
Right. So you are correct. You can do that. That is nonsense, but you can do it. It is possible. And there we go. So I hope that gave everybody some lists. Any final thoughts? Nick, any final thoughts on Skaven here?
I think we've covered it pretty well. I love the book. I wish there were elements of it that were a little bit more powerful, to crowd out some of the things that are kind of just naturally powerful, to compete better with them in an internal balance point of view. But I love the modularity. I love that there are so many different options, and this combinatorial problem of which of the options am I going to slot in here, and I think it's very well positioned into this new General's Handbook, more so than it was in the last one, certainly, but I think more so than it will be in most. Specifically, this rule set is very good for it.
Yeah. Nick, if you're trying to go 5-0 at a tournament, what kind of list are you running? Are you running like a mixed arms, a little melee, a little shooting? Are you leaning more heavily in a particular direction?
Is my only goal to get 5-0 in this hypothetical scenario, or do I want to do it with style?
Let's do both.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna pack a Deathmaster and some Storm Vermin, and I'm going to run a Warbringer, and then I'm probably going to see if I can squeeze in 6 Storm Fiends, and a Scryer hero of some kind to babysit them. And then as many clan rats as I can afford on top of that. Okay.
1x6 or 2x3 Storm Fiends. I'm getting into the details at this point, but I'm just curious.
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily matter.
I would probably run 2x3 right now if they were my only Scryer unit.
Okay. Interesting. Now, was that the style or was that pure filth?
Well, so I wouldn't run the Storm Fiends if I was going for style.
Okay. What are we running?
I'm gonna have my Warbringer. I'm gonna have a Hell Pit Abomination, and I'm gonna. It would be very similar, like to our recent Skaven battle report on the channel, where I had the Deathmaster package, and I had some melee units to accompany it. Although Molder is really compelling right now, so I'd probably work in a Master Molder and 2 units of Rat Ogres and a unit of Rats.
Yeah. Okay.
Having just giant rats coming back on a 3 for a command point is really good.
Quite good.
But it's another screen right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mentioned at the top I was playing some Escalation recently, and I
Mm.
had a 1,000 point game on my Skaven against a gentleman just last week, and I set up my 6 giant rats at the very beginning of the game, and I said these rats are going on a pilgrimage, and he was playing ogres, and there was
Mm.
not a and I knew there wouldn't be a scenario where he wanted to commit a unit of ogres into those giant rats, so they were
Mm.
just going across the board the whole time. Even that little bit of utility, bringing back a unit like that, can be really, really strong.
Yeah.
So Sean in the comments asked, please elaborate on how to make Storm Fiends work for you. I walk away disappointed every single time. Well, I mean, I'll give my answer, which is, and then Nick, I'm curious as to yours. I mean, the traditional answer is more warp power, and you spark them. And if you're talking about a 1x6 or a 2x3, it doesn't matter. But your general armament is going to be the wind launchers, the rattling guns, and then the melee guy, right? That's sort of your traditional ranged power armament. And in that package where they're under that sort of set of buffs, they just do quite a lot of damage. Because whether you have them in 2x3 or 1x6, the spark can still hit both of them. Because as I previously mentioned, the +1 damage spark can be on up to 3 units, as long as they're all in the appropriate range. The only difference is the more warp power, sort of being able to get everything you need. And when you put that whole unit under +1 to hit and wound and +1 damage, like that's a set of powerful buffs that's gonna really just, and then it's just about target priority. What are you shooting at? What's gonna actually where are you gonna have the effect there? Sometimes that can mean, by the way, splitting your shots. Like it's the type of thing where you shouldn't be afraid to. If there's a reasonable target you can hit that has a good armor save, and your wind launchers have the chance to actually get in there and do some damage, bring the Ren to bear there, and meanwhile put the rattling guns into a mass of something where that's just where the 2 damage -1 Rend is going to have much more effect. Like that's a completely viable thing to do. And as they take wounds, the melee guy dies first. I guess that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, what did I miss there?
Echo all of that. The only thing I'd maybe add is that they're a unit that is hurt less by the shooting protection than most shooting units, because they're not a unit that you're often relying on killing heroes with. You're often just clearing their area.
Yeah.
Get them to a place, bring them out of a gnaw hole, and clear the units that are close to them. And throw some long range shots with the wind launchers potentially into something. It's great when you can soul screen bridge them or get them into something techless and shoot it off the table. That's awesome. But oftentimes them just killing bodies and then just killing troops is the best use of them. And just clear their space. It's a lot like playing KO. KO, you want to bring your castle somewhere and clear that area.
Yeah. And a purple sun helps.
Purple sun helps. Yeah, have a dude who can skitter leap sun and then bounce. That will increase their efficacy again a lot. I think that a lot of people often tend to just like take them and try to point them at some big monster hero with like saves and wards. And if you do that, that's just like the worst inefficient use of them, because they will just tend to horribly underperform against that type of an enemy. Like some monster hero who's 3-up, 5-up. It's just not a great target for them. Yeah, you look at the wind launchers and you're like, oh, it's great Rend, I can punch through. And yeah, but they'll bleed off enough with the ward save and with the occasional saves and so on that you just don't get anything out of them. When you put them into the bulk of their army, the stuff that's on like a 4-up save and a 5-up save, it pays massive dividends, because especially with the spark, you just start lifting people. And that's what matters. You're trying to use them to get their wound count down, right? They're just a sieve. It's like, okay, I need to take 20 wounds off your army this turn. Let's do it with these guys into that, and let's get that unit either horribly thinned or gone completely.
Right.
Yeah, and
just watch out for 4-up rallies.
If you teleport them in and your opponent, maybe you're playing against Nurgle and they've got Orgots, and you teleport them in and you say Orgots is a priority target, and my Storm Fiends are going to be how I deal with it, and the Storm Fiends kill Orgots, which they're not guaranteed to do. He can very easily survive this. But let's say they do kill him. You've now spent a 640-point unit to kill a 300-point unit and died on the back. This is a bad trade for you. right? You need recurring value from them. They need to protect themselves by killing the threats against them that are nearby. Echoing what Keith Rogers said, it's easy to get them out of position. You want to play on the edge with them and make that edge. So get them to the edge and then push the edge back as far as you can with their shooting, because you're clearing.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. We just real quickly, we mentioned Joe Vucic's list. So run through it, because he did use 2x3 Storm Fiends plus Purple Sun over the weekend. I thought it was a nice, for what I know about Skaven, a nice balance of factors that we've talked about tonight. So he had 2 Plague Priest, he had a Warlock Engineer for babysitting with more warp power for the Storm Fiends, babysitting the 2 Warp Lightning Cannons in his list, a Grey Seer, Master Magic, Skaven Brew as the General Death Frenzy, 2x30 Plague Monks, 2x3 Storm Fiends, Purple Sun, Warlord Vanguard. So I really like that list. You know, Joe's a great player. It's not too surprising he went 4-1 with it. But when I think about that, kind of, I'm thinking, you know, it's got that balance of distance with the range projection, 2 Warp Lightning Cannons, Storm Fiends, but also really meaningful output with the Plague Monks. Now, he doesn't have like 20 Clan Rats that he can put in front of the 30 Plague Monks. So you have to be careful about not just getting them blown up before they can do some work. But I just thought that was a nice balance potentially with the Skaven list for what I understand of. And then the shorter range of the Plague Priests with the Great Plagues and the various buffs that they can do for the Plague Monks.
Plague Monks are not typically all that punchy, but pairing them with a Purple Sun is going to get a little bit more output out of it. Purple Sun to juice up your shooting output. Purple Sun is a big force multiplier on something like Storm Fiends.
And he had a Curse as well, of course, on both Plague Priests. And juicing up the attacks and looking to lean into that. So interesting list.
Very good. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much. Hey, don't forget, hit like if you haven't already. Subscribe, do all those fun things. But hitting buttons is easy and fun and free and helps support the channel and helps other people find the show, which we love. Don't forget, if you want to support the channel with, dollars, you can do so through the Patreon link down below. That's focused on hobby and review and taking your next step on your hobby journey. Nick, hey, sir, appreciate it. This was great having you back on. Thanks for coming on and talking rats.
Awesome to be here.
Absolutely. For all of you out there who are watching, we thank you so much for watching again. And don't worry, as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.